Hello, and welcome back to the JRB podcast with myself, Ryan Levine, joined by Jeff Jones and Bohdan Temnick.
Hey,
What's up?
Okay, this week I think it's pretty much just going to be a Duelist Nexus analysis, just like we've done with the last couple sets. And I think we've hit like a point, as the game has many, many times, where I don't necessarily think there's any new deck in this set that's like really that compelling. There's some support for some old decks that we'll talk about. There are a couple like pretty flashy, exciting cards, but for the most part, if there is no list, I feel like Kashtira is just still gonna be the best deck, or like the most represented deck at least. And then Purrely got some new support, so it will be better, right? Like maybe it still has the same or similar problems that it had before, but it just has like a new relevant extra deck card. So
So
it's
the
just
thing with
strictly
Purley
better.
is I'm a big Purley fan,
Mm-hmm.
but a huge thing right now is it kind of it, in the current state with the new set being out is it has the Kashtira problem where it's super heavily targeted,
Sure.
and so like you'll see like people like Paka posted like one day he goes like undefeated as local, so next weekend he goes 0-3 drop. And same with like people like when I try running, I'm like half the time it's broken and am unbeatable. The other half, like I can't do anything, or my opponent just has like one Book of Moon and is able to like use it out of my trap card, so then I can't rank up and draw extra cards, and then I just lose. Um, it's just like very heavily targeted, which makes it feel very weird to play with.
I feel like it was a sleeper correct choice when people didn't know what it did. So you had like a very solid pocket. I'd like to think maybe leading up to the WCQ where it was like an underrepresented deck where the general public doesn't know like the correct way to deal with it. Like people don't know when to ash. And truly, I think there might still not be a correct time to ash it because sometimes it doesn't matter at all, as well as just like minor interactions that they might neglect, like stuff with Book of Moon against the trap and all of those just really thin ones. So obviously, like, yeah, on top of that, what Jeff said, when Pearly is played a lot more, people tend to know what to do against it a little bit more. And then we have the layer of like this deck can also just brick. You can't get hard carried because your opponent makes a mistake, and then you get to like make a Zeus. But I think the deck is fine. When it gets to play, it's really good. But I think before, when you bricked, you sort of just had to hope that your opponent made a mistake more than like just anything at all.
Yeah, and like we tend to see when people catch up, I guess from like a technical play perspective, we kind of see the decks evolve from a deck building perspective to sort of counteract that, where like people get better at playing against it, people get better at playing it, and people get better at building it. But I feel like because this is one of those decks that seems almost just pretty much card for card translated from what just the OCG decks were. Like this is a deck that just plays a lot of engine because you kind of have to. And I don't think there's much room for you to really navigate from a deck building perspective how people are countering it, right? Like I don't know what you can do from a deck building perspective to like not lose to dimensional barrier. There's not really a whole lot there.
Yeah.
So um
Well,
yeah.
that's like actually the big one, right? Like if you talk to or even if you just like see some of the profiles from Nats, where a lot of the people that Kamal would beat in his run to top 8, they didn't have many cards for Pearly. So like either a Noir would stick and you don't have an actual efficient out in your Kashtira deck, which is more geared towards the mirror match as it should be. Outside of just like the non-engine like Book of Moon and stuff like that. But then you have Kamal's opponent in top 8 who had 3D barrier in their side deck because they were afraid of branded, and obviously it doubles up against Pearly and then has some application across other matchups. So Kamal plays into the one person playing D barrier in the tournament. who, did well enough to figure out the metagame to put those cards in his side deck, and Kamal got absolutely destroyed. So, and that's before like Purrely has all the new bells and whistles, where like no one wants to play Cash again for the next 18 months. So
New bell and
everyone's probably
whistle,
gonna play
singular.
Purrely.
Yeah,
A singular
like,
bell and
Bell,
whistle.
yeah, sure.
So
I guess.
and that's kind of how it's like. So my locals is like fairly big, between 30 and 50 people on Wednesday and Friday, and basically just everyone just stopped playing Kashtira because no one wants to play it. The people who did just are playing other decks now, so it's it's kind of like its own weird mini format because everyone's just kind of silently agreed no one will use Kashtira.
It's kind of funny. Yeah, I judged a case tournament at one of the locals in my area last weekend, and it was it was the first weekend that DUNE was legal, and yeah, it was 63 people, and I think like 4 were playing Kashtira, and I truly I agree that it's everyone's just tired of it, and unlike other times when like a perceived best deck has just kind of been head and shoulders better than everything, to the point that even when everyone's tired of playing it, you still get a third of the tournament is playing it. I will die on this hill. Kashtira is I will concede Kashtira is probably the best deck right now, but I truly do not think it's that good. Like, it is it I it is just so much worse than it was, and it's truly just because the other decks are just even worse than that. It just doesn't do anything that spectacular anymore, but it does just enough that even when you get stopped and you just have a unicorn or a Fenrir, like the other decks are just so bad they just can't even beat that. Like a Fenrir set Book of Moon when your opponent hand traps you might just win against enough of these decks. But a lot of people were trying out new Duelist Nexus stuff. And this was just a local, so I wouldn't really read too far into it. But it's like there were like 4 people trying the new Altergeist cards. There were like 4 people playing the new Noble Knight stuff or the Infernoble stuff. No one was playing Rescue Ace, surprisingly. That was one that I thought would be popular at like a local level, and that's probably going to be one of the decks that we talk about like more so than the other one. But like one person was playing like the what are they called? The illusion stuff, the new stuff, the chimeras. Yeah, and it was but it was a lot of Purrely. I think the most played, kind of expectedly, right, is like, well, I don't want to play Kashtira anymore. It's kind of boring. And Purrely got new cards, so I guess I'll try Purrely. And like that was definitely the most played deck.
If we also want to look at some of the events that transpired this weekend, we did have the Remote Duel Extravaganza, which is I think it's a reasonably big tournament. The winner does get ultra prize cards. Like that's something that's usually only reserved for a YCS. Like you're getting like couple $1,000s worth of like prizes, for a remote duel event, which I think is kind of cool, but also kind of silly. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah. So that cut to top 8, I believe, or it might have cut to top 16.
16.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the breakdown for the main event was primarily Kashtira as expected, and then we had 6 Kashtira, 5 Purrely. We had a generator, which I don't really want to touch on. 1 Labyrinth deck, Marine Cess, Vanquish Soul, and Dragon Link. So that's like pretty expected, I guess. Like maybe it's missing some mainstays, but smaller sample size, you might see like more skewed results. Playing enough rounds, whatever.
The only thing I want to touch on about the generator deck, I read the top 16 feature match, and I screenshotted this and I sent this to you, and it was
you did?
in the feature match, he was playing Alistair in his generator deck, and then there's a line in the feature where it's like he summons Alistair, his opponent responds with Unicorn and Fenrir, and like the Alistair gets banished face down, and like he loses his extra deck, and I'm sitting here like, oh my god. Like it didn't occur to me how like unplayable Alistair is. If you summon Alistair into a Fenrir or in a Rise Heart, you you just lose. Like, it did not occur to me how just strictly unplayable this card is right now. And how
it's pretty alarming, yeah.
it's
Like,
like,
how oppressive those cards are into
yeah.
just like the most basic things.
That's
Yeah.
what I didn't get is the reason it was what I guess was so jarring, right? Is like, I
Mhm.
guess we'll just use this. We're already talking about Kashtira, so I guess we'll just keep talking about it. It's just like, in my head, for whatever reason, obviously last format Kashtira was extremely impressive because it not only was it the macrocosmos stuff, but it also could just lock all your zones sometimes. Like, if your deck could play through macrocosmos, then post side, if they knew that a Rise Heart alone wasn't going to cut it, they could just try to lock all your zones, and no deck beats that. So, whatever.
Yeah.
But now it's like, okay, it only has the, like a Rise Heart aspect. And it really does just make me think back to all those conversations on the old streams, right? When we would talk with the Sala about like stuff like Masterpiece and Colossus, and we all kind of had the consensus that like those cards are interesting when they're released for a little bit, because it's kind of like a deck building puzzle of like, okay, this new
Mhm.
crazy card came out, how do we beat it, right? And eventually we do find ways to beat it, sometimes very, very quickly. Like, we were playing, Book of Moon and Book of Eclipse literally at Mexico City. Like literally the day the cards came out, we were already playing what ended up being some of the best answers to these cards. And then you get to that point where, okay, this is like a Floodgate S card that demands specific answers. So now the format can't have like these crazy, crazy combo decks because they just auto lose to, against Colossus or Masterpiece or Arise Heart or what have you, right? These very, very strong, just like standalone cards that are format warping, and you have to play
Mhm.
specific decks or specific cards. And then I just look at like a card like Alistair. This is not a word I use to describe cards often. Think about how sturdy of a card Alistair is. Okay,
Mhm.
like, think about how sturdy that card is, and it is literally unplayable in the face of not even just a Rise Heart, but just in the face of Fenrir. I think that was where it like kind of clicked, where I looked at that and I was like,
I think Alistair is unplayable on a good day,
yeah,
so
yeah,
that's
yeah,
neither here nor
yeah, yeah,
there.
yeah. I know, but like, it'll
Yeah.
do what it's supposed to do enough of the time,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and
Maybe
I'm
not into
just,
Colossus either,
I
but
well, yeah, but
uh,
that also was last on the card, but certainly unplayable. I'm just thinking
yeah,
about
yeah.
like what do these decks look like, where it's like, imagine your opponent just summons a Rise Heart, you look at your hand of Alistair, Fusion, Destiny, Nettier Servant, you just go, you're
Mhm.
just like, yeah, I guess. And like, I know that I don't. I mean, maybe Invoked should be the litmus test of Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Of like, that's like the most fair unfair deck you can possibly have, probably, right? Is like Mecha Buh plus DPE. Like, if that's like at the upper end of the power level of your format's probably okay. Oh, my cat. Sorry, my cat just jumped on my microphone. Anyways, yeah. So it is kind of funny when you see these decks just get. I mean, like, I admit, yes, Alistair would get bullied out of the format just because of the power level of the format, but it was just funny to see how like just invalidated so many of these cards are, that because I've just been playing these decks that aren't necessarily invalidated by Kashtira. It's just like, I'm sure there are a lot of people who just aren't having fun when the deck they've been playing for years just can't function. And I'm sure they felt the same way against Colossus and the same way against Masterpiece. And, you know, it I feel like Arise Heart's time may have come. But
Mhm. I wouldn't be opposed to that. I think they function close enough to the same. It's very simple, very easy to summon, right? The
yeah.
biggest problem.
And if they just like ban a Rise Heart and like leave everything else in Kashtira. Let's say hypothetically ban a Rise Heart and then put Unicorn back to 3, just arbitrarily, because why not?
You did not just say, let's say hypothetically. I'm out, dude. That's very funny. Anyway, go on.
anyways,
Yeah, keep
anyways,
starting.
but let's
Yeah.
say I don't. Okay,
All right.
would just Kashtira being like a weird level 7 control deck with like big minions be enough? Probably not, right? Like, surely not.
I mean, that's just like what it's doing now on a good day. It's
Mhm.
just ending on the 2. And then yeah, the thing is, right, when that happens, we sort of have to look at what opens up when a Rise Heart doesn't exist, and
Yeah.
then you have to look at, well, is Fenrir Unicorn enough? And the answer is probably no.
Mhm.
Because I think that the biggest issue is like the looming threat of a Rise Heart, where you have to make like these really poor deck building choices to like compensate for it, and then half the time they just don't even summon it. And you're like,
yeah.
like, well, I guess. So,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is that like a lot of times you like prepare your deck for a Rise Heart, or like it goes back to like
Hmm.
the whole like, are they going to like the Nibiru thing? Like, will they go like all out and make the field of like 3 monsters and then Nibiru them? Or are they just gonna go a Rise Pass? So it's like Book of Moon
Yeah.
is better than like Nibiru, like. And now you wouldn't have to worry about that ever. You just know
No.
what their possibility is always going to be Unicorn Fenrir Pass or
Yeah,
whatever.
even more so, yeah, because we went from the Arise Heart board or the super wide board, and now it's the Arise Heart board or like the wide air quotes board being like Fenrir Unicorn, like Scareclaw Cash in defense mode,
Mm-hmm.
to like stop opposing Fenrirs or whatever, which
Well,
is like
I
sort
mean,
of
like
real.
if
But
you go like crazy wide, you could probably have like field spell Shang in some instances,
sure,
and then you
yep,
have like another
yeah,
pop, yeah. But
hmm
like again, so that's it's not to say I think like if you ban a Rise Heart, Cash is like unplayable because like the cards are good. They're like standalone. You see Fenrir and other decks, like it's a good card.
yeah.
And like
Which
logically, the
I
deck that plays all access to Fenrir
I
has
want
to
to
be
talk about
decent.
that soon. Actually, I actually
Mm.
think I think Fenrir might just not be very good. Actually,
No,
Mm-hmm.
I actually
I
think
think all
Fenrir
of us
isn't
have
that
thought
good.
like Fenrir is not super crazy. When my opponent summons a Fenrir, I'm
Oh
never
yeah.
like, oh no, Fenrir. It's like a lot of people like in the beginning compared it to like, oh, it's like the new Pankatops, and then like I shit myself way more
Hanger
when
House being a
Pankatops
quick
was
effect
revealed.
is really tough.
Yeah.
So one thing I
No.
will say, one point I will concede in my spew of Pankratops or of Fenrir is not that good is I will say what happens. I'm going to say more than half the time when I play Fenrir in a not Kashtira deck and I go summon Fenrir because it has to be your first action because you have to have no monsters.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
summon
Mm-hmm.
Fenrir and my opponent frantically looks at their back row and then Book of Moons it. And then I look at my hand of my 5 other engine cards from the other deck I was playing that do not interact with the Book of Moon and go, I guess. And I feel like
Mm.
if Kashtira as a deck was hit and Book of Moon type effects see less play in the main deck, then maybe Fenrir just walks
Yeah.
far more often in not Kashtira decks. But while we're in a format where Kashtira is like the deck you have to build to beat or else you will lose to it, Fenrir in other decks, Fenrir just catches strays. Like that's basically it, right? Like you just catch a stray Book of Eclipse or like a stray Daruma, cannon or like Book of Moon or Floodgate Chapel or whatever. Like you'll summon Fenrir and something will do something to it that is so detrimental to you that you wish it just like you wish you had 5 cards instead of 5 plus Fenrir because something will happen to that Fenrir that is just so demoralizing. And most of these like not Kashtira decks can't play like Lance because that's the only time it interacts, right? Is like you have to draw, if you draw your other cards and have Lance, just nothing matters and just it's unplayable. But I don't know if they do go the route that the OCG did and just ban every main deck Kashtira card, like I guess.
I mean, I think that it's better for them if they just go the tier limit route and do the Kit Kalos thing and just ban the Riser, because that means also they can reprint these cards and make more money off of them.
Sure, yeah. If they ban Arise and then reprint Fenrir, yeah, that's probably real. That's probably a real consideration. In Japan, Fenrir was a rare. Teehee.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even have
Yeah,
rares
yeah,
anymore. We don't even have rares anymore. So that's how
I don't
relevant
know.
that is.
My legendary duelist Soul Burner is saying
Oh,
otherwise, but
All
uh,
right. Okay. Anyway, we got really. So that's our. I guess that's our Kashtira. That's pretty much gonna probably be our whole Kashtira talk.
Well,
Unless you guys want to go.
we sort of went off the
Yeah. Yeah.
deep end for
Remember when
that.
we were talking about Dune and then
I
talked
know.
about
I
Kashtira for
know.
30 minutes?
I know. 20
Yeah.
minutes.
Anyways, so when you look at the top 16 and then it transitions to the top 8, so we go from like we have 5 Pearly and 4 of them make the top 8, and then we only see 1 Cash make the top 8, and then the rest is like so it's 4 Pearly, 1 Cash, a Marine Cess, a Vanquish Soul, and a Labyrinth. And it's like, well, I think Pearly, its best matchup is just inherently Cash when Pearly like gets to play, because all the cards are pretty well positioned into like the minimalist board. Like before non-engine comes into play, I think like Pearly engine is like pretty well positioned into Cash engine. So it doesn't surprise me that was like the transition. I didn't like anticipate it to be that like that much of a conversion rate, like from one part of Top Cut to another. But
Do you
it's
have all the
neither here nor
matchups
there.
from top 16 available or no? Or just the.
Yeah. Well, it was Lab versus Pearly, and then it was Pearly versus Marine Cess, and then it was Pearly versus Kashtira, and Pearly versus Vanquish Soul. And top 4
Oh,
is
Vanquish
2
will beat
Pearly on one
Purrely.
side of the bracket.
That's kind of surprising.
Nah. Oh, I don't have the top 16
Oh,
matchups,
okay.
but you can
Okay. Yeah.
assume.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
will
like
assume the
Dragon
Vanquish will
Link
beat
lost and
Kashtira.
whatever else.
Yeah. That's.
Probably, yeah.
That's what I will assume. Yeah.
But then we have top 4 is 2 Pearly on one side of the bracket, so the Pearly beat Kashtira and it beat Vanquish Soul. And then we have Marine Cess beat Pearly, and then Labyrinth beat Pearly. So yeah, then Lab beats Marine Cess, Pearly beats Pearly, as is tradition, and then Pearly versus Lab in the finals, and D Barrier carries again, and here we are.
Yeah.
So I think that's like pretty reasonable. If you showed me those 16 decks enough of the time, I would say that Cash probably doesn't win that event. But I don't assume that Lab is winning that event. I think Lab kind of comes out of left field in those sort of spots. Like it does sort of have to dodge Cash enough of the time. I think it's decently positioned, but I think Cash is just like powerful, comparatively. Whereas like Lab into Pearly is like Lab probably has more auto wins than Pearly has good hits off the little cat, so a little dog, whatever they are. Someone told me they were dogs. Who would have thought?
I'm near certain Purrely is a cat because of the art of the new Xyz monster. Jeff and I had this discussion already. That
Okay.
cats sit like that and dogs do not. So
Meow.
Purrely is
You're
a
good.
cat. I'm declaring. So yep.
That's fair.
I don't know if you heard that. My cat agrees. He's right here.
But yeah, I think like Marine Cess decks like Marine Cess always just they fill that sort of little like outlier role of they do something unique, and it's difficult to accommodate for what it does because of how unique it is. But maybe it's a little less so now, depending on how people build their decks. Yeah, like some people are playing stuff like Xyz Encore and everything else, so like maybe those cards are better well positioned into decks like Pearly and maybe like Cash, but then you put those cards against Marine Cess and like I guess you're trading with the totally awesome for some of the end boards. Like Marine Cess at that point is really just like summon towers that goes in more than anything. So but yeah, and then like obviously Lab beating decks like Marine Cess pretty standard. It just has a bunch of traps that pop normal summons and like trade up against extenders, so it's reasonable to assume like Lab wins the die roll. It's probably well positioned enough. Well, like the Marine Cess player played into like Lava Golem Sphere mode, which are also in the Lab player's deck as well. But
Oh, yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
not too much to take away from this event. I think this is just like new format, haha, Pearly, the only deck that gains stuff. But I did see a case tournament that was won by Rescue A's, so that's also kind of funny.
Yeah, so
I'm
I was talk about Rescuers just for a second because Ryan mentioned that he was surprised that no one around him was using it, and I'm in a similar boat where I think there was maybe one person who used it, and I think a big thing of it is that a lot of people didn't pick those cards up, and now like one of the cards in the main deck is like $40 each, and people just didn't want
Mm-hmm.
to like invest into that. Um, but I think that deck is pretty decent. I think it's I honestly I think it's pretty good. I'm just gonna say I think it's pretty good. I think it's better with the next set, Age of Overlord, which is leagues and abounds way more impactful than Duelist Nexus will be. But
What is Rescue Ace get from Overlord?
they get the new generic Splash Girl, who's like gonna be like
Oh,
the
sure,
new
sure,
elf.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
she's just very good in a lot of things.
Oh, right, because it gets to search the Rescue Ace card, right? It adds a
Yeah,
fire or something. Yeah.
so it's basically you discard a card to summon her, then search your deck for a spell, and the spell
Mm-hmm.
tributes her to summon a level 1 fighter from deck. So then it summons the Rescue Ace level 1, and then search your deck for the normal summon, normal summon search, and then it's like your whole combo or whatever. So it's like
Reasonable.
it's like more copies of 1-for-1 that also have better cards than just 1-for-1. But yeah, I've been very surprised to see because I saw a lot of it on Dueling Book, um, and then saw like none of it in real life, and I guess Ryan
It
didn't either.
it definitely feels like a dueling book deck for a lot of the grinders. Like unironically, the tournament that I saw was won by Brian Chen, who is a dueling book grinder. Shout out to Brian. Um, so yeah, it doesn't surprise me. It just seems like a deck like in real life you sit there, it does one thing very well, and it just plays a lot of like back and forth. Is that particularly fun? Maybe not a lot of the time. I think that deck can do some like unique things, but at the core of it, it really just tries to turbo to the big one, resolve it, and then pray. Which I'm sure
Yeah,
most people can agree with. That's like a lot of these strategies, but Ace sort of I don't think it functions if you don't resolve turbulence, right? It's like
no, definitely
pretty
not.
average
Like
deck.
I mean, after that, it's just like you have a if you don't resolve turbulence, you're just like trying to book a moon your opponent and hand trapping them,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Yeah,
a
it's
common
interesting to see
theme.
though. It's like this deck just plays a bunch of like the one-off cards that you would rather just set every single time, and then when you draw them, you're like kind of upset, but not really.
It is
It's weird. This deck
it
is
is
neat.
literally Secret Paladin. It is so funny. I can't like
Yeah,
I
like
actually, for those who don't know what
it's
that
just
is.
yes, it is Yu-Gi-Oh
it is
Christmas tree at that point.
it is literally Secret Paladin. There was a Hearthstone deck
It's
like
very funny.
uh how
Mm-hmm.
many years ago now? Jesus, like 7 years ago,
I
maybe?
mean,
A long time
I
ago,
don't think
right?
it wasn't. It might have actually been
I think it was
7. It
like
might have been
7 years
like
ago.
what,
Yeah, it was
20?
before they introduced even the standard format. Yeah, so there was a
Yeah,
card
yeah.
there was a card called Mysterious Challenger, and it basically did what, like, when Turbulence was revealed, I looked at that and said, wow, that's just Mysterious Challenger. That's so funny. It's just a Hearthstone. It just said play one of every, essentially put one of every trap from your deck onto the field. And in the class it was locked to, they only had small inconsequential traps, but obviously when you get 4 of them for free, it doesn't matter how inconsequential they are. Like,
It's just free cards.
And
it's pretty good, and deck thins a lot. Yeah, and like
they
it's literally just Rescue Ace Turbulence is literally just Mysterious Challenger, and I think that's really
they
funny.
called it the Christmas tree deck in
And
Hearthstone
yep,
because your little like hero thing would get all the
Oh
secret tabs,
yeah.
and
yeah,
it would look like a Christmas tree.
yep.
So let's think of a funny name to call Rescue Ace besides the very obvious one that people like to call it, Ace. Race, my fellow racists, etc.
Uh-huh.
But that is the meme of the future. But we could probably figure out one that's a little more PG friendly.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, mostly from setting 5 from one card. I don't know. We'll work it out. Yeah, no, I think this deck is cool though. I think there's like some other stuff that I'm surprised isn't really popping up, but I think we're in like this weird transition period of people either A, not really caring, B, they're going to Worlds so they don't have to worry, C, the next event is not for like another month, and like maybe a ban list happens and they're hopeful for that as well. So
Yeah.
could be a little bit more indifference, but I think the Unchained cards are also
Yes,
pretty
I think
cool.
those are actually
No.
pretty good.
Yeah, I think those are like sleeper picks as well. They do quite a lot. They function pretty well in Labyrinth. I don't necessarily know if that's like good enough, but yeah, I mean it's fine.
Well, one thing
Like,
I like about them also is that like a lot of decks right now. So Droll again is very popular, and that deck does not get hit by Droll. It doesn't really get hit by like
Mhm.
Nibiru or anything like that. And when it does get hit by Nibiru, it's very like inconsequential because a lot of your cards
Yeah.
float. Um, so I really like decks like that. So that's a reason why I'm kind of a fan of that deck, where these really big, impactful, stupid cards that turn off a lot of decks does not those cards don't affect it, which I think is like a huge benefit of if you decide to play that
Mhm.
deck.
I think it is so funny that you mentioned Droll. There was one guy playing Unchained at the case tournament, and I was walking by his table, and he does his like the one search that Unchained does in their turn, and then he gets
Yes.
drolled, and he went, "Huh, that's a-okay," and then just destroyed,
I hate
and then
that.
just
I hate it.
destroyed the
Oh
guy.
my
And I was
god.
like, this guy's having the time of his life. Like this guy's just happy to be here.
Yes. It's very silly.
Yeah, it was very fun that you mentioned that, but yeah. I haven't looked too far into those, but I like it is just one of those where like it's a deck that I know Unchained Abomination is pretty good. Like I've played that in a bunch of decks, and like I know the Unchained cards like have some reasonable cards, and it's just one of those decks that got support, and probably the new support is probably pretty good. Like it's probably better than all the cards they had before. So we've seen how much even like one or two support cards for an old deck can do. Like Rescue Ace, for example, like it just gets two new cards that are just so mind-blowingly good for its consistency that it propels it to being like probably a tier 1 deck. Um, man, I really hope Vanquish Soul gets a card as good as these Rescue Ace cards.
So someone made top 8 at this thing with Rescue or with
Yeah,
that
yeah, I
deck,
know.
right?
Yeah, they did.
Did you see what their deck was?
I did not. I don't
Oh,
know if it's
okay.
posted anywhere. I have really, really committed to the Vanquish Soul bit, so much so that at the WCQ a few weeks ago, my round 4 opponent, when we sat down, he said, "I really hope you were just kidding on the podcast and you're not actually playing Vanquish Soul because I don't want to have to read them." And then I summoned Raised, and he went and he just sighed, and it was like, yeah, like yes, but it was it was a fun match, and he did have to read them. He was not kidding, but yeah, I feel like as much as I've screamed from the heavens that I'm gonna play Vanquish Soul when the new card comes out in Age of Overlord again, I feel like by playing it at the WCQ, I fulfilled the blood contract that I had by talking about it literally every single one. So I'm probably gonna play it, but I really like Rescue Ace. Like I really like the new cards, so
Mhm.
I'll probably play that for a little while until Age of Overlord, and then maybe I'll like the new card that Jeff was talking about in that set and just play Rescue Ace. But
Yeah,
that is
Diabell Star, the
probably
Dark Witch.
the one thing that I'm kind of concerned about is we just saw, and again, I don't think this is as necessary as Super Heavy Samurai was, but we just saw like Super Heavy Super Heavy Samurai and Purrely getting commons, and then both getting hit like in like the day their cards come out, and their Rescue Ace cards are commons. So I don't think this is a deck that's like as popular or as on the radar or as oppressive as like Purrely or Super Heavy Samurai were,
Hmm.
in anticipation of their release. But
Yeah.
but I'm looking at it with kind of a raised eyebrow and like my fingers crossed. Like if I buy Rescue 8 Hydrants tomorrow, please, please don't ban them.
Well, I'm
Before.
gonna see you this weekend, and I have some hydrants for you if you
Hmm.
need them.
We'll see. Um, and then what else is? I guess you've been playing the mythical. What is this deck called?
So,
Chimera? Is that what it's
so
called?
it is so weird because I can't find a name that suits it except for the Chimera deck
Sure.
because it. I mean, it's kind of based like you win with making a monster that is Chimera, and then you also win by making Guardian Chimera
Hmm.
99% of the time.
So
So I
is
just
Mhm.
Guardian
call it the Chimera
Chimera?
deck.
Is it
Everyone else calls it the illusion deck, and I'm like, there's like 2 illusion monsters in the deck, and like I would not call it that, but
um does Guardian Chimera having Chimera in its name matter for this deck or no?
nope, it does
It does.
not.
Okay, like it's not. There's
The
no.
fact that
Yeah.
it is a beast monster matters.
Sure.
The
Okay,
fact
that's
that its
fair.
name is Chimera does not.
Okay. Cool. Cool. That makes sense. Yeah, but you've been playing it, and I know you're not completely satisfied with your deck at this moment, but I know you've been playing it a lot. And like, what do you like about these cards?
You always have I mean, first of all, common theme of Yu-Gi-Oh, you get to play with one card.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if your one card resolves, it feels very hard to lose. I mean, it's a monster that searches 2 cards. It searches for a any level 4 beast monster, and then also searches for Chimera fusion.
Somebody
And
told me that on Saturday, and they said, "Yeah, it searches 2 cards," and I said, "Like, oh, like you discard and it searches 2?" He's like, "No, it just searches 2."
no,
I'm like,
you
"You
just
like
yeah.
you just get 2?" He's like,
Hmm.
"Yeah." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "What?"
It's pretty silly.
What's its name? What is the name of that one?
It's Berfamut the something. It's a new Berfamut. That's all I
Okay,
remember. I remember. Let's see. I have the thing up. BER Big Winged Berfamut.
big winged Berthomet.
Yeah.
Oh, this one. Okay, cool. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add 1 level 4 beast monster and or 1 Chimera fusion from your deck to your hand. Also, you can special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn except fusion monsters. Would be a shame if Branded Fusion also had that same restriction and probably was in your deck. But
Yes.
okay, that's pretty cool. He's level 5 though. Is there a guy that summons him?
Yes.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. So they have a Lone Fire Blossom that's a quick effect.
Ah,
So
incredible
Mirror
equation.
Sword Mirror Sword Knight has the effect that all illusion monsters have right now. Illusion monsters have this effect that say if they battle a monster, neither monster can be destroyed by battle because they're illusions. They cannot be
Ooh.
destroyed and they cannot destroy.
Ooh.
Um,
Yeah, he's got a little like Thousand Eyes relinquished. Like he's got an Eye of Anubis on his chest. I see in the
yeah.
art here.
And he says, quick effect, you contribute him to summon a monster from your deck that mentions Chimera Fusion.
Hmm.
So that's all of these cards, including that guy who searches 2 cards. And then if your opponent activates a monster effect on the field while you control Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast, you can banish it from your graveyard to negate it. So you have a 1 card combo that searches 2 cards, discards a card from your opponent's hand, negates a monster effect, negates a card that targets, and the best thing about the Chimera fusion is that it says you can like once per turn just add it from the graveyard back to your hand, and activating it is not once per turn. So you can
Nice.
activate as many of these as you want per turn. Usually you can like end turn 1 setting 2 of them. Um, and during your opponent's turn, you get to use Mirror Knight's effect again because it's a quick effect, and you get to summon it to the field twice, and then summon the Berfomet to the field again, and then search for 2 more cards. So during your opponent's turn, they're starting with a hand of only 5 cards, and you have 7 at least.
And this is a quick play. You can only fuse during the main phase, so no battle shenanigans, but this is a quick play too.
Yes, and the fact,
Oh.
yeah,
So you can so as long as you use a beast or a fiend, you can make Guardian Chimera on your opponent's turn, right?
yep. And then
Okay.
because Guardian Chimera is a beast, you can also use that to fulfill the requirements of activating that card.
Hmm. Okay. It's pretty cool. And then you just play Branded Fusion in this deck, I assume, to like kind of fill out the rest and like maybe like
I just play 3 Branded Fusion and 1 Elbez, and that's
sure.
it.
Sure.
Most people
Oh,
go a
because
little
these are
heavier
beasts, so
into
you
the
can
Branded.
summon what's his name, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
The
you go Albez and send a beast for you send Gazelle, King of the Mythical Claws,
mhm.
and then that searches your deck for any monster that says or any illusion monster. So you can just search your deck for Mirror Sword Knight, and then normal summon Mirror Sword Knight, tribute it, bring out Berfomet, search 2 cards, play the fusion spell, um, fusion summon into Chimera, use its effect, and then on your opponent's turn, you can use Chimera Fusion to fuse with your what is this monster's name? What is the fusion monster's name that I'm blanking on? Hold on,
I
let me grab
couldn't.
my deck.
I couldn't
I
tell
know-
you. I know it's. I know you're. It's the Alabaz one that needs like
Here we go.
beasts, right?
Rinbrum. Yeah,
Yes,
Rinbrum.
that
It
one.
takes yeah.
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 I
So
could
then you
not have
can
told
use
you in a million tries with that card's deck or with that
use
card's
Chimera
deck.
Fusion to fuse with Rinbrum and something else. And
Mm-hmm.
then now Rinbrum's in the graveyard and you can banish it to summon Elbaz back from the graveyard to like mirror jade your opponent. So with just branded fusion, you end with like infinite interruptions and infinite cards. And it's even crazier because half the time, if I activate Branded Fusion, I want my opponent to activate Ash Blossom because Ash Blossom on Mirrored Sword Knight is way more detrimental
Yeah.
than actually Branded Fusion. So if someone goes like Ash Blossom on that and I summon Mirror Knight, and then I'm going to full combo you, discard another card from your hand, you now have 3 cards in hand, and good luck winning with 3 cards in hand while I have like 3 interruptions on my next turn.
I think what's kind of funny about this Lone Fire Blossom card being a quick effect is if you really, really think about it, this is just what Lone Fire Blossom was in 2008 anyway.
Yes.
When if you just
Except
called
you can't use
priority.
it in the battle phase or your opponent's turn.
Like, yeah. But it's just like summoning Lone Fire and calling priority is just the same, I
Kind of a quick
guess.
effect.
But yeah. And that's kind of what these types of cards have to be now, I guess, to just not instantly lose to like
A Book of Moon.
yeah, literally. A Book of Moon or, just any like spell speed 1 type of effect. There's supposed to, yeah, just any there's supposed to be 2, anything like that you just can't. That can happen
Yeah.
before you resolve your effect.
Yeah. This deck also just sucks into Kashtira, obviously. So definitely not better than Kashtira, but
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of potential. It's not like a huge accomplishment, but I've been like undefeated at 3 locals now with it.
Wow.
Yeah, a whole 3 locals.
Whoa.
Yeah. But I'm able to beat like most of the top decks.
Yeah.
Like I said, no one's really playing Kashtira right now. So it's kind of whatever. It's not really like great at like telling you how it is in the current format, but I just don't even consider this format a real thing right now. It's kind of just fake until Forbidden List comes out.
I kind of agree. I was thinking about it and it's like like World is next week, so there haven't really been any events and everyone kind of was on the same page, like it was impossible to get a list before Worlds, and then I think everyone's kind of on the same page. They want a list after Worlds, and there's even a bit of time before the first YCS post Worlds. Like regionals start up reasonably soon, so there'll probably be some regionals with the current list and the current card pool, but I imagine we'll have a list before the next YCS.
I definitely don't think it's
Altergeist.
like completely out of line. So I think it's equally as likely that we could just have a list like the week after Worlds. Like, who's to say we wouldn't? Yeah.
Yeah. Jeff just got
Yeah.
disconnected on Discord, but we will
Oh, sure.
continue. I mean,
Yeah,
I
so
just can we just while we're here we can go new Altergeist cards. It's probably pretty bad. All right, moving on.
I mean, they're fine. Like they do something, but again, without a ban list.
Yeah,
Here's
like
how
if
it
these were printed
works.
5 years ago, they'd be really good. But
Yeah.
but
Well, you
I
could have
was
combo
I was getting
elements.
I was getting deep in the Geist combos. I guess I'll I will drop this small bit of knowledge. So with the new card, Altergeist Malwisp, and make sure I'm not cheating because I read this card like 19 times. This card does not lock you into anything. Unlike Multifaker,
Yeah.
this card does not lock you into
You get to
anything.
make, like Heat Soul and stuff like that in this deck. Yeah.
Yeah, so you could if you want to, so it can make, I didn't even think about Heat Soul. That's pretty good. You can make Heat Soul, or you can make like just so Meliseek turn into Linkuriboh, search Malwisp when it's added to your hand summons itself and brings back a Meliseek. You can make Hextia. You can make Herald of the Arclight if you want, because Malwisp was a tuner for some reason. And something really funny that, like, this is something that, like, I don't know how this has never come up. Because surely, since Linkuriboh was printed, Crush Card Virus could have been played against something. You can Crush Card Virus tributing Linkuriboh. And I think that's really funny. And if
what does that have to do with anything?
Well,
what?
If you do this, you can Maliseek for Linkuriboh, search Malwisp, summon Malwisp, get back Maliseek, make Herald of the Arclight, and then set Crush Card Virus. And then you Crush Card them with Herald of the Arclight face up, and now all their cards get banished. So even if they...
all right, that's pretty good. Yeah, I'll give you that one.
And I just went, huh? I was, I believe I said that in one of the chats, and Max said, "Why haven't we been funding this research sooner?" or something. Like
Ryan when he crush cards Kashtira, and they then activate both.
Well.
Uh-oh.
I can't believe we're about to get Crush Card banned again.
I know. If you also think about
funny,
it.
though.
So what makes this so funny to me is Maliseek now, just based on anything that Malwisp can summon, Maliseek can make any virus card live. Like literally all of them, except maybe not like full force. I don't remember the requirements of full force. I think that involves defense points, so whatever. But you can do Maliseek, Linkuriboh, yada yada. And then you Malwisp bring back Maliseek, you make Hextia, then you turn Linkuriboh and Hextia into Boral Code Dragon. And then when Hextia goes to grave, it searches an Altergeist, so probably a multi-faker. But could be a trap if you need a trap and already have faker. And now Boral Code Dragon is a 2500 attack Dark Link 3 that just needs 2+ effect monsters. It's the Decode Talker requirements. And it can be attributed, I think, well, for Eradicator, yes. And then Deck Dev is 2000 or higher Dark Monster. Yeah, so it can be attributed.
You can make that, or you can make the Code Breaker. Virus Swordsman.
It can do Deck Dev, or it can do Eradicator. And Boral Code Dragon has a graveyard effect where it has an emission effect where you can banish it from your graveyard. It's such a specific effect. You can banish this card from your graveyard, banish one dark monster with 3000 or more attack from the field, and if you do, special summon one topologic monster from your extra deck or graveyard. So you can banish it from your graveyard, banish a Rise Heart on the field, and then summon a topologic monster from your extra deck.
Shut up.
So that is as far as I got with Altergeist.
I get you. That's very funny. I think the making the viruses live is definitely something cool.
Yeah. That's as far as I got.
The question, but like you beg the question of like Labyrinth can just do this. Like why wouldn't we just do this in Labyrinth?
Yeah. I mean they could. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, it always comes back.
I'm pretty sure. I am pretty sure that Maliseek plus Puqueri also just like does just whatever you want. Like it just
it lets you set up literally everything. It's crazy.
Yeah, it makes the new Link 4 Altergeist, which like searches an Altergeist trap, and then also makes Hextia, and you link it away.
Cards, then you have a Snatch Steal on field. It's fine. Like it's like every other deck where if it goes first uncontested and resolves its crazy combo, it's probably winning.
Yes. Except you're just a trap deck, so you can't win going second. And you're probably already doing everything going first.
Right, It was also like how many times are you just like not gonna draw that combo, and instead it's just gonna be like make Herald like that.
Yeah. How many times are you just gonna drop Puqueri and do nothing with it? Yes.
Yeah, pretty.
Oh my god.
I mean, you could draw like 2 sprite cards and then probably have a Herald of the Arclight.
You could draw any. Yeah, you could draw 2 anything, 2 cards in any deck. I agree. There was one more. Okay, so the other card. Some people. So like I've seen. This is a card that I have seen the most mixed opinions on, and I think it is so funny how mixed the opinions are of this spell. My cat is popping off. Hold on, where'd he go? Tokusano Shinkyojin is a spell card that says send monsters from your hand or face-up field to the graveyard whose total levels equal 10. Draw 2 cards.
This is the most divisive card.
I have literally seen people posting about this and saying, like, this card is broken. I think it will get banned. It's not even once per turn. And then I've seen people post, like, this is just worse trade-in.
Yes.
And right, exactly. and it's just baffling to see how differently people evaluate cards, because I think this is just the most strictly okay card ever. I do not think this is worse than trade-in, and obviously this card is not good. Like, it's not, like, it's not like a staple in anything, but it's just so funny to see people look at this and be like, it's not once per turn, it's broken. And I'm like, what is happening? The best card you can send off this is like Golden Lord, and like, even then, what are you really doing?
I mean, I think it's worse than trade-in. I think there are way better level 8 monsters than there are level 10 monsters.
Just can send from field.
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, I know.
I do not care about that at all. If I'm putting a monster on the field, very rarely do I want to sacrifice
If it's a level 10 monster.
Yes.
If this could tribute face downs, I actually would think it has a reasonable amount of merit. Like, again, just random. If you're playing your Eldritch deck and you summon Golden Lord, and then you try to use Conk, and then they Book of Moon your Golden Lord. Like, if this card could, like, sack that Golden Lord, draw 2, put it back in your graveyard, that would be, like, above 0 utility. But as it stands now, and you can only do it when it's face up.
The designer in me looks at cards like this, and I always think, this card could have been so much cooler or so much better with just a slight change.
It just said from the field.
And what was that?
If it just didn't say face up, I think this card would be perfect. Like,
no, so the thing is that why would you want to get rid of like your level 10 monsters on the field? I think that it should say that you can send monsters from your hand or field. Sure, it doesn't have to be face up. Whose total levels equals 10. Draw 2 cards. Also, if you only sent monsters from your field, draw an additional card. That way, because like it's way easy. It's way harder to put monsters on the field.
Yeah.
Like, especially big monsters than most.
And I don't even think that would be, like, if that card did what you said, Eldritch is not tier 1. Like, that's, like, I don't think anybody's tributing. Yeah, I agree. That's interesting. That's funny when you think of making a card that much better. When you put it like that, and I think about, you made this card significantly better, and even when you make it significantly better, it's still not broken. This card has to be terrible. Right? Like, that's, yeah. This card has to be, like, the literal worst card ever.
But there's cards like that all the time, where I just think if they just made a small little change, this card would have been way more interesting and way better at the same time.
Yeah, that is something interesting. It's funny because there's another card that came out in this set that I had that exact same thought of. Where is it? It's a spell card. Let me find it. Sinful Spoils of Subversion, Snake Eye.
Yeah, that's part of the new Snake Eyes archetype that comes out of the next set.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Yeah. Does this actually have... Oh, okay. So, interesting. So, when I read this, target one phase of monster on the field, plays it face up in its owner's spell and trap card zone as a continuous spell. You can only activate one Sinful Spoils, Subversion, Snake Eye per turn. I thought it would be interesting if it could also move a monster from the spell and trap card zone to, like, if it was target a monster on the field, put it in a spell and trap zone, or target a monster card that is a continuous spell and summon it. I thought that would have been an interesting card. But, like, as it stands,
the deck as itself does do that. They have other cards that, like, move monsters from the spell and trap card zone into the monster zone and whatever already.
Yeah.
And this card, I don't even know if you would play this card in the Snake Eyes deck, but it would have been infinitely better if you could do that, because it would mean drawing this card turn 1 would not be awful if you put one of your own monsters into your
Yeah.
spell and trap card zone. But instead, you may play one of this card, or like one or none of this card, just because it's searchable. But
And there are like enough cards that this could work with anyway, that I think it would just it would just be fine, right? Like it wouldn't be broken. It would be nearly the same card to a lot of people, honestly. But I think it would be a lot more interesting. Yeah. And it's funny cuz you see them make some of these cards and play it so safe where they have no chance of like being playable. And then some of these cards you just read them and you're like, this is the most broken thing I've ever seen in my life. And I don't really see where the like it really just feels like, I mean, and obviously there's not just one person designing every Yu-Gi-Oh card, but it's like it just really feels like there's a lot of disconnect in power level when sets are designed. But
I think also, like, when I read this card also, it's like one of those things that I almost feel like this card should be a quick play spell with a caveat. And I think like it should be like target a face up monster on the field, place it into its face up as a face up spell and trap card zone. If you target an opponent's monster, you have to activate this card from your hand. So that way you can't like set it and use it as removal, but you could also target your own monsters as a quick play, or like you can like draw phase, like quick play, put your guys into the back row or whatever like that, and it makes it like way more impactful on your own turn, while also being able to like set it to possibly like protect a monster you control. It's just like small things like that I think make cards way more interesting. Just having like, obviously we talk about all the time how like cards have so much text right now, but I think you can a lot of times add just slightly more text to things and make them way more interesting and suck way less. And I find that to happen very often. Instead, they just go like, if it's cards are either almost always like broken or unplayable, and they could just go to the unplayable ones and simply add slightly different or modified text, and a card would actually be pretty decent. And you won't have these sets that are like so top heavy with like, here's these 3 really good cards, the rest of the cards are dog shit.
yeah, and you always see like the more generic cards being secret rare, and they're just like why is this card a secret rare? Like like it's because it's a generic card, but it's like what deck is playing this? What are you using it against? Like
I would say like sometimes there are like certain cards like, I'm trying to think of a card. Like I think like I might be wrong or like embellishing, but I think like Back to Square One might be a better card than this card.
It's close. I don't think this card is significantly better than Soul Taker.
No, sure,
so,
yeah, or,
like
sure,
I think this card is marginally better than Soul Taker.
Yes.
Yes, like if this like didn't target, maybe.
I think if it didn't target, honestly,
if it didn't target, it would still not be played, right? Like, I think this is worse than Ultimate Slayer, not in the context of specifically a Rise Heart on the opponent's
I was going to
field.
say that too. Yeah,
but I think Ultimate Slayer is a better card than this. That came out like 4 sets earlier, right? Like that's, I don't know. I think that's kind of all the interesting. I guess we should talk about Tistina a little bit. It's just not a deck yet, right? Like it just isn't a deck.
No.
Also,
so I'm gonna.
Can you help me understand how the trap card works or what its function is? I can't. So activate this card by targeting 1 face-up monster on the field. Special summon this card as an effect monster, Aqua Light level 10/0/0, with the following effect. This card is still also a trap. During your opponent's turn, when that target leaves the field, destroy this card. during your opponent's turn, when this card leaves the field, destroy that target. Nothing in their deck interacts with this on the opponent's turn. Why does it have this effect? What is the point? There is not a single Tistina card that I could find that like destroys your card on your opponent's turn. They all do it on your own turn. Why does it do? How does this? What is the intended function of this card?
I think that reading one thing.
Like,
All right,
can
so
I don't know.
So you know what? I just think, and I'm gonna be brutally honest because that's what has to happen. I just think that they are dumb.
I think maybe like was it supposed to say during your like it's just bizarre that it has two effects that both say during your opponent. I feel like one of these two effects maybe was supposed to say
So
during
it's
your
going to go.
turn.
I'm going to go back to a podcast we did before, and where we talked about why do the versus cards have this effect that prevents you from like doing this thing that does not matter. And we read into it like, oh, maybe like the last card shown like has to deal with this. And it just wasn't at all. And they just have this effect on them that is inconsequential to like how the deck plays 99.9% of the time. And I think this is another thing that they just have like an inconsequential effect on a card that just does not matter.
Like
I think Japan made like a lot. I'm pretty sure Japan just looked at this and they just said, "All right, this is what it's gonna do," and they're like, "Okay, this is the effect."
Like there's a card, Sentinel of the Tistina. If this card is in your hand or graveyard, and you control a light Tistina monster, okay, great. That's what the trap is, a light Tistina monster. Spell summon this card. You can target one Tistina monster or one face down card you control. Great. It's currently treated as a monster because it is a trap monster. Destroy it, then add a Tistina card from deck to your hand. Okay, cool. So you destroy it and it destroys your opponent's monster you targeted. No, it doesn't because it's not your opponent's turn. So what is like what is it? I don't get it. I don't understand. Yeah. All this does is it dies when the opponent links off their monster.
Outside the second wave of support having some sort of quick effect that deals with this, I really think it's just a blanket effect Japan put on a card and just doesn't matter.
I read this card. You have no idea how many times I read this card and trying to make sense of it. I read every Tistina card so many times, trying to figure out what the intended usage of this card was, and I could not do it. Because then I was thinking, okay, maybe again this is, and then I remembered opponent's turn, so none of this matters. Maybe, so it says when this card leaves the field, destroy that target. Maybe there would be some obscure new trap monster ruling where if a trap monster gets flipped face down, because when trap monsters get flipped face down and they're still treated as traps, so not like Paleozoics, but for like Honk and Aquarium or whatever, they go back as set trap cards for some reason. They don't go as monsters. They literally go back to your spell and trap card zone. So I was thinking maybe this is some obscure new trap monster ruling where if you Book of Moon this monster, which some Tistina cards do, it will destroy the opponent's monster you targeted somehow. And then so many reasons. One, I mean, it can't do, that's probably not how that works anyway. Like if this is, even if it is your opponent's turn, this gets Book of Moon, probably won't kill the monster. It's probably not how that works, but I don't know. And then two, it's the Tistina cards only flip your own cards during your turn. Because there's another Tistina card that you can Book of Moon a monster to search a Tistina card, and you can Book of Moon that, but it doesn't matter. And then all of the Tistina cards, the only Tistina card that has an effect on your opponent's turn
is Demigod.
Only affects your opponent's cards. You can change. Instant face-up card. Yeah, it changes as many monsters your opponent controls as possible to face down defense position. Then you can send all face-up cards your opponent controls to the graveyard. So it doesn't. None of them interact with the strap card, and it's driving me insane. that I can't figure out what the point of this card is.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. I don't understand. And yeah, maybe the next wave of support will mean something.
But we've said that before. We're like maybe this does this because of the next wave or
and
next
it's never
card
been true.
interaction. I don't think it's been true yet.
I don't think it's been true a single time. I actually don't think it's been true a single time, which is very funny.
I'm always hopeful.
Yeah. Well, at least our
Just
Tistina
learn the
monsters
lesson.
can attack directly while our opponents control a face-down defense position monster. Thanks, Hound of the Tistina.
Yes. Thanks, Hound of Tistina.
Thanks, Super Rare and Duelist Nexus. Oh, God.
yeah. This card is literally a card that looks like it would have been printed 8 years ago or something. Or 10 years
Sentinel
ago.
is actually pretty good. Like
Sentinel is very good.
Yeah. And they're the same rarity somehow.
Yes.
I don't know. Whatever. Okay, and then somehow I almost said, and that's it from this set, and then I remembered Revolution Synchron. We haven't talked about that yet. So this is probably the most exciting card from this set, but I don't think, one, with Kashtira, I don't know how you're playing a deck that uses this card, and two, without Chaos Ruler, like, the best card you can make with this is banned here. So
which card? So
Chaos Ruler.
So
like, that's the best card this card can make.
No. So the thing you want to use it for right now is you just use it to make Crystal Wing with like one
Yeah, that's
card,
a lot worse than
basically.
Chaos Ruler.
Well, it makes it so you can't get Nibiru or anything like that. So it's the same thing as like when you make Baron. But still, like
This card can also. I think what's the kind of cool thing about this card is it can make a level 7 or level 8 dragon, and it can make any power tool monster. So you can make Power Tool Braver, which is a level 9, and then you can bring this back, and then you can make Baron, as every deck does. So that's another option you have with this card. Like, this card is good. It's just like, I just feel like a lot of the more unfair decks really wanted. I feel like the deck this goes into most like fluidly would be a Bistral, Assault Synchron, Adventure deck with Chaos Ruler legal. But Chaos Ruler is not legal. So
well, Mendadium is also playing this deck right now. So
you can play that you can play this card in a lot of you can play this in Vanquish Soul. God, it's an Earth monster.
You could play this Vanquish Soul, yes.
But I feel like after a list, if Synchro decks don't get hit, this card will be very, very good. But now, I'm not quite seeing it.
My problem with the Synchro decks is that all of them are the same. They are all make these Synchro monsters that have negates. And every single one of those decks, it's the same thing as with the Super Heavy Samurai deck, right? Obviously a little different in the fact that we didn't like that deck because you can't play the best cards in the game, which are like the powerful spell cards. But when those decks, these are all just combo decks that use a lot of engine, and lose to like cards like Dimensional Shifter and Droll Lockbird and stuff like that. And when these things are in format, they get heavily targeted, and it makes it really hard to play them. On top of the fact that if they are good, then you have to deal with like these combo mirror matches that are just unbearable, and it's whoever goes first or draws good side deck cards wins. And this has just been my problem with these kind of decks for years. It'd be different if they made like a cool synchro deck that just didn't thrive on making a crap ton of negates. In a way, I guess that deck was kind of the Moyi deck, Sword Soul, which throws up like a Baron, which is more commonly now they wouldn't use Baron, they were using the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I think at the end of the day, for a strategy like this, no matter what, your end board is just gonna get made uncontested, in which case nothing matters and you're not gonna have a fun and interactive game of Yu-Gi-Oh!
yes.
Or it's gonna get interacted with and you're gonna end on a junk speeder. You know what I mean? Like that's it. That's all that's gonna happen.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And then you're gonna lose
like,
instantly.
I
Yes.
feel like there's this weird pocket of the community now. And it's funny, I feel like it's only relegated to Twitter, but they're talking about how good this deck is, and it's like this deck can rip 5. I'm like,
yeah, that's
yeah.
not gonna happen. Yeah,
Literally,
you know what else could do that?
literally
Samurai
every
deck.
deck
Yeah,
that goes uncontested for the last 5 years
Yes.
won instantly.
I
Like, you know,
stand
like
by that.
if your opponent like I just yeah.
They just see like these like dueling book replays where they're like drawing a hand and doing it themselves and think, oh my god, this is crazy. I'm like, yeah, but in practice, when
Except
you're
it will
playing an
never
actual
happen.
game,
It will never happen. And if it
Bro,
and if it did happen,
I could fill up a whole like TikTok account or like YouTube shorts of me just like opening 5 cards and then showing you a bunch of different ways to
Yes.
FTK. It just doesn't matter.
It's so bizarre to me because it's these I feel like it's the same group of people that it creates almost an echo chamber of this deck does a lot and it's toxic for X reason. It should, you know, whatever. And then those decks literally never do well. And the decks that do well are the good, I'm going to use this word again, this callback, sturdy decks like Kashtira or like, you know, the Sprite decks or like Tier Elements. I guess Tier is a different example because Tier is mostly engine. But I'm going to go back to say like Sprite, Kashtira, Purrely even, that can just play as many non-engine cards as they want. They play like 12 hand traps to not get FTK'd. And then the same group of people that were saying this Synchro combo deck is so toxic it should be banned, then see the decks that win are the mid-range decks that play 12 hand traps go, so many hand traps, Yu-Gi-Oh sucks. And it's like, what do you like? Yeah, like what? Like what? Would you rather get handled? Like what? If the combo decks that FTK you are bad, why do you hate when a mid-range deck with hand traps is good? Like I don't that should be what you should be what you want, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't really like. It always baffles me because it always seems like it's like the same groups of people, but maybe it's just I see something on Twitter and I just in my brain file it away to it's Twitter.
Well, you can also go back to when we talked about originally before it was even legal Super Heavy Samurai and how we talked about the flaws of the deck and how just playing like Kashtira is just better. And then you can go back to our videos and comments of different people saying like, no, you just don't understand. Like you get to play like all these hand traps that you can't that like to stop Kashtira, and like we're just like, no, hand traps suck versus Kashtira. You don't know what you're talking about. And then look what happened. You could play Super Heavy Samurai in the same format as Kashtira, and it wasn't even close. Like it was still 90%.
Yeah, top 4 was for Kashtira at that YCS Philly. Probably top 8 was probably like 6. Like I don't know, you know. Yeah.
I sit there thinking like, you know what? Sometimes I like sit there and think, you know what? Obviously we are human, and thus because we are human, we will create errors or be flawed. But sometimes I just think, man, people really just talk to us like we just don't know what we're talking about sometimes.
Yeah. It's yeah. I mean, I will say, if somebody said we're dumb for saying Cash sucked after the list, I take that. I'm dumb. But at the same time, you know what? No, I think Cash does suck. I still think it sucks.
No,
it's just
because we went back and said like, you know what? I do not think Cash is that good, and we're right. Cash is not that good. Every other deck just sucks.
Every other deck just is worse. Yeah, which is but I think that was our failure. Honestly, that was our failure to identify how much worse every other deck was.
It absolutely was. It was absolutely our mistake. Mistake feels like the wrong word, but like
Yeah.
oversight, I think is the
Yeah.
better word. An
Yeah.
oversight on our part of how worse every deck was compared to
Yeah.
Kashtira. Like when we sit there and draw like Kashtira hands, you're like, holy crap! Like at this ending field sucks. It like is so easily
There's no way
exploitable.
I'll win, and then your opponent goes, "Ugh, you got it," and I'm like, "What?"
Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, like nothing mattered. Like relative to the format, it's because you look at like how the game has progressed, and then you see these end boards, and you think there's no way this should work enough of the time. But then the reality is like, no, nothing else is good. And that's also on another note, something that I sort of came to the conclusion of for Master Duel testing, where it was like, yeah, like you have all of these decks that are really good, and it's like you have to field 6 decks, and then you know what? When you get to the bottom of it, wow, it really gets bad down there.
Yeah,
It's pretty rough.
The 6th best deck sure is rough, huh? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. But
Oh, you like Yu-Gi-Oh? Name 6 good decks. Oh my god.
yeah. I think also like the other thing is when you think about the formats we just came from, right? Like we just came from Kashtira with all of its cards, which was insane, obviously. Then right before that, we had the Ishizu tier deck, which was insane, obviously. And then right before that, we had
He was
the
tier and Sprite.
the other tier, yeah, like the no Ishizu tier deck, and then Sprite with like Elf and Toad and Ronin Toden.
Also Runic.
You know, and it's just like and if you look at all those and you're like, all right, of all those decks, the weakest one was actually Sprite, and you look at what that does, and it uses like one card, and it makes like a Toad that comes back and searches more cards, and you're just like, then you look at Kashtira Fenrir, and you're like, what am I doing? You know, like it's just like what am I doing with my life?
What have I
This
done to
is
deserve
it's
this?
literally
Yeah.
been 7 months since I summoned 3 toads. like literally 7 months ago, you were making a toad with an elf and a double cross. You negated half your opponent's hand and took them. You took half of their hand.
Yes.
like you know, that was the power level that we were, and that was the worst deck. That there was a deck better than that. That's the, you know, so when we look at these decks now, I'm looking at them like, man, all these decks are so bad, and it's just like, yeah, because relative to what we've been playing with for the last year, these decks suck. But you know, it is what it is.
Like, I think also a thing is when we say like these decks suck, it's a lot of times also when you're playing the decks and they have such few flaws, and then they use a forbidden list, and now suddenly the decks just all have like these really weird flaws, and that's what makes them feel suck. It's like, well,
Yes.
it's like the deck doesn't feel, because the deck is no longer the
It's no longer
way it
complete.
was designed to be, right? So
Yeah.
now it's like, well, now this just feels weird because it's definitely not the way it was designed to be, and it feels really bizarre and funky, and
Mhm.
you're in this weird limbo state waiting for like new cards to come out. Yeah, I don't know.
No, I agree with you completely. That's a good way to put it. Is like it's just jarring to go from what the deck used to be. Like when you summon an Arise Heart and then your opponent kills it, and then you're like entering a grind game, and then a month ago you just reach
Summon
over
another one.
and pull a second one out of your pocket. Essentially, like that's your extra deck just cards in your pocket. Like essentially, you know, you just pull a second Arise Heart out of your pocket, and now you win. And it's like now you can't do that. Now you have to keep playing. You know, and you're like, huh, this Kashtira deck sure is a lot worse when I have to keep playing. You know, although sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's just fine. Sometimes you keep Fenrir and Unicorn up because you can't make anything legally, and then your opponent doesn't draw a live card, and then now they die because you kept up Fenrir and Unicorn instead of making an Arise Heart. You know, but it is just something. That's a good way to put it, though. That it does just feel a bit incomplete, I think, after a list. But yeah, I'm now finally I think that mostly covers Dune.
I think that covers Dune and kind of the format as a whole.
Yeah.
And I think one thing we wanted to touch on last was, I mean, we didn't talk about it, I don't think, Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And our very own Bohdan is playing in Master Duel World. So, Bohdan, do you want to kind of talk about what you're excited for, or not to give anything about your own team away, but kind of what you think the format is going to be leading up into this? All your deck lists are submitted now, so uh, I'm just kind of
I mean,
interested to hear on what your
it's
take
literally
is.
what you would expect, right? Like it tier the definitive best deck, but then given how it's structured, it's like round robin and like your team has to win and it's still best of one and there's shared cards and you have the unique card rules and all of these other factors. I don't think this is a solved format by any means.
Oh, for sure. Definitely not. This is
And
such a
I
weird
think
format.
it's like yeah, it's like broad enough. But you expect tier to have the highest win percentage. I mean, you can either accommodate for tier. Tier is still going to be the best deck enough of the time. Otherwise, why wouldn't it be the best deck if tier, if tier sits down across from a deck that's built to beat tier, tier will still win. 40% of the time, or maybe more if you factor in winning the die roll as well. So
Hmm.
I think they didn't really put a lot of forethought into the whole thing, but I don't know. This would be good for like maybe like the next worlds or something, or like in the future if they do like any big monster events. It could be very interesting to see like what they do with like a system like this, right? Because you definitely like you play a lot of games, but I think like just with how best of one is structured, you're not getting full gas out of like what you could be doing, especially at like a world championship level. So it seems kind of watered down, but that's fine. It'll be fun. I'm 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 down. Play some Yu-Gi-Oh. Go see Japan for a bit. All the standard stuff. And like same with TCG as well. I think TCG is gonna be it's just another amalgamation of like all these very watered down decks. Because like it's funny when you look at it. Like TCG ban list hits a bunch of degenerate stuff that OCG hasn't hit, and then OCG hits a bunch of the fair stuff that TCG hasn't hit. And then you just have these like everything clinging for life, trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, it
Right.
is. It is very funny. I think it's even, and Dune is not legal.
It's not
It
legal.
shouldn't
No,
be legal.
No.
Yeah,
traditionally the latest set is not legal.
yeah,
No, there's also
and
some other cards that aren't legal because they're like
they're not released
imports
in
from
every
like
territory. Yeah.
Monsters Revenge. Yeah, so
Hmm.
it's not like too crazy for what it is. But yeah, like off the top of my head, it's not something I really looked at. Like I sort of neglected like the TCG releases as well when doing like the Master Duel testing too. It's just not on my radar.
Yeah.
But from talking to some of the competitors and stuff like that, I don't think you're going to see too much innovation. But that's something we've traditionally seen with Worlds anyway. It's all standard decks, with maybe some tech choices to try and get you there. I think that the big thing about this year's Worlds would be like the structure, right? Is 7 rounds cut to top 8 for like 30 people or 28 people or something.
Oh, is it more
Hmm.
rounds this year?
Yeah,
Oh,
and
that's
they've
such a
also
good
changed
change.
like time rules and like shuffling rules and everything. And I
That's
think
such a good
that's
change.
all on the Konami website if you want
That's
to check
so
that out.
good.
What?
Yeah,
So
so it's
can you, for some, I don't want to go look for it. Can you just kind of briefly tell me what like the time shuffling rules is?
let me find the thing because the rules are on the Konami thing.
Okay.
I'll just
I just remember playing 5 rounds,
without
just being
without me
sick.
without me like I will double check
Not that
to be
my
sure.
tournament, my
But
tournament could
I
have been
can
10 rounds, and
easily
it
mention
still
what
wouldn't have.
is going. Actually, wait, the rules are
I
on
would have
here. Yeah,
just, I would
TCG.
have just lost
Okay,
more
so
rounds.
as per the Konami website, so this is not coming from anything that I have been given. This is legitimately on the website konami.com/Yu-Gi-Oh
Konami.com.
/World Championship. Just for full disclosure, at the time of me reading this, so day 2 will consist of the remaining 2 rounds of single elimination, play featuring the remaining top 4 duelists from day 1. Tournament format, best of 3. Best of 3. Swiss rounds, 7 rounds of Swiss. Cut to top 8. Blah blah blah. Decklist standard stuff. Time limit. Time limit for each Swiss round is 45 minutes. Time limit for the semifinals is 55 minutes. The championship match does not have a time limit. Both duelists are expected to play at the proper pace, and slow penalties will be enforced as needed. Very interesting that they noted this as like prior, slow play
was it was an issue, but like a little bit more lenient in the World Championship because OCG territories did not have like an end of match procedure or even like knew what slow play was. They thought it was like a reasonable pace just because of how their tournaments were structured.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if there's anything else that brings up. There's like a whole section on slow play on here, and then like a bunch of other stuff. End of match procedure is actually unique, I think, from what I can imagine. Let me double check. End of match procedure. Time is called while duelists are in the middle of a game. The current game must have a decision, win, loss, or draw. Once the current game is concluded by a decision, determine the winner of the match by determining the number of game wins each duelist has for the current match. Blah blah blah. Standard stuff. If a win condition occurs during end of procedure wins the current game, keep these three rules in mind. Continue with the current phase of the game. Once the phase is over, stop the game. So that's pretty like, did we have that for our World Championship? I don't remember.
Well, isn't that just the current time rules?
Well, given that we have like OCG as well, I usually figure they have a mid ground, but I can't remember how our one was.
Ours in 2018 was just the old TCG ones. Despite Worlds 2018 took place, I want to say 2 months after the end of match procedures changed to what they are now. So until mid 2018, at one time was called you played 3 additional turns, and then in 2018 they changed it to you end the current phase. And despite Worlds occurring 2 months after that change happened, we still played with the old end of match procedures of 3 additional turns. And that did not stop me from still losing in time in a winning position, even with extra turns. I still lost. Oh god.
It's worth noting as well, they don't mention pile shuffling at all, which is good, because in prior years that was something that they would always bring up. It's like pile shuffle, and this one does not mention it at all. It says each duelist will use the overhand shuffling method. Okay, reasonable. And then after the deck is randomized, presented to the opponent must randomize (brackets shuffle the deck further). But I'm sure there'll be a world where pile shuffling is pretty commonplace, and you see the pile shuffling Olympics on stream as a tradition. And then they have the same thing as the 2019 worlds, where they have resolving multiple search effects in a turn. They have a card that says randomized and not randomized, so you keep track of when you have to shuffle your deck after an effect has resolved or something. If you have to draw a card and the deck hasn't been randomized, and you'll randomize it as a tradition. A judge will make the final randomization during quarterfinals and semifinals. That was the same thing as the World Championship most years, right? I think it's just
I believe so. Which, keep in mind, this is crazy that it just occurred to me. Despite the fact that what we're referencing was Worlds 5 years ago, there has only been one since then. That didn't occur to me when because a few days ago I got all the Facebook on this day things where it was just a bunch of posts from Japan or whatever, and I was like, oh, it's 5 years ago, that's crazy. And then I thought about how much Yu-Gi-Oh has happened in 5 years, and then I think about there's only been one world since then, because there was no worlds for 3 years, and that's crazy. Or 3 years, that's just crazy to think about. How in the grand scheme of things, how recent that actually was, because 2.5 years just don't count. I guess
they also have the tournament policy up and everything else. I guess the ones that people will probably want to look over is concessions of games. That was a hot topic, right? It says duelists may concede a game in the interest of time. Duelists who wish to concede must call a floor judge and inform the judge of the concession.
That's the same in 2018.
Yep, that's standard. Duelists may concede game 1, 2, and/or 3. However, they may not choose to concede an entire match during the World Championship. Duelists will be required to follow a specific procedure if they wish to concede a duel while featured on the live stream. This procedure will be explained to duelists prior to the live stream match. So it's interesting that one's not, in the document, considering that's the one that usually gets publicized the most.
Yeah.
And then obviously we have nice standard ones here. Dropping from the tournament, clothing, mandatory items, blah blah blah. Obviously they supply it with sleeves, whatever else. Seeing if there's anything else that stands out. Not really though. I think it's part and parcel for a World Championship. Nothing, nothing too glaring. It's just all the things you would expect. And then I guess like the time rules are probably the biggest thing here, like just adjusting over the years, which is good. Like if we're gonna change anything, it's like the time rules and the amount of rounds that you actually play, right? Like that's
Mhm.
always good.
I
There's an
really
interesting one
like the
to note,
rounds
actually.
change.
If you look at the tournament policy and you go to policy D, or like I think it's like wait, what is this? It's like 6 duelists can conduct during the tournament, like part D, and it's like post-match use of live stream footage. Errors involving misplays or life point discrepancies discovered by reviewing footage after a match is concluded will not alter the outcome of the match. Video evidence may not be used to determine if cheating has occurred, even after the match is concluded. If it is determined that a duelist is cheated, they will be disqualified without prize. Oh no, it says may be used. Yeah, it doesn't say may not. Sorry, but that's very interesting that is in policy. Like that is in paper on the Konami website. Everyone can read this, and it says video evidence may be used to determine if cheating has occurred. Oh, well, that's also a step in the right direction, and they've also vocalized it, so it's always
Yeah.
cool. I don't think there's any other like infractions. There's some interesting ones with like marked cards with like cards with autographs and stuff like that. Considering they like will inspect your deck and tell you if a card is playable or not.
Yeah.
I
I don't
can't
believe we
really
were
do
allowed to
enough.
play. Yeah, because you're not allowed to play any altered cards at Worlds. I'm fairly
Yeah.
certain. But interestingly, you are. Well, you were. I don't know if you're still allowed to. You were allowed to play any language of any territory
No,
in Worlds, so you could play
I'm pretty
Japanese
sure the document
cards.
says you can.
Yeah, so that was
I'm
fun.
pretty
That's the
sure
only time I did that
Yeah.
just because obviously you don't get to do that ever again. So I
Yeah.
just played a mostly
Well,
Japanese deck.
fun thing to note as well in the 2019 World Championship celebration. I'm surprised we don't have one for this year, or like maybe it's a
Yeah,
longer
I'm
date.
surprised we don't have one for this year. I didn't think about that.
But 2019, the rules were actually you were allowed to use
Yeah, I
any
remember.
language, which I think was really interesting.
I think
you got to have you got to play all of your cool rarity cards as long as you had the appropriate sleeves to make sure
which
not differentiate.
just funny thing. Round 1, I played against a Japanese player, and his deck was all English, and my deck was all Japanese. It was very funny. It was like, okay.
You know what they say: the grass is always greener.
I know.
Mhm.
But,
Yeah, no, it should be like a pretty because they also have an announcement. I feel like we didn't really touch on. Do you
Oh
have
yeah,
any
they do.
speculation for that as well?
Yes. I mean, so there's a website with like I think it's like a little countdown to like the 25th anniversary announcement, something or other. You know, the tiny bit of me, it deep down inside, underneath all the cold and grossness, there's a little bit of an optimist in me. It's trying to claw its way out and hoping for an announcement of like a new TV show with
something
like
cool.
new
Anything cool.
new kinds of cards that change the way the game works. But realistically, it's probably like a new Yu-Gi-Oh movie. Honestly, Bonds Behind Time 2, Electric Boogaloo.
No, that would be what? I'd like that more. I
I
would love that. I would love
uh,
if they make Bonds Beyond Time 2, I am there. Day 1. I am there. I will
But yeah, dude, I think like the
Damn, Jeff, you got me
craziest
hell excited now. I want Bonds Beyond Time 2. I hope.
So,
Oh
but
my god.
let's look at it like this though. They are announcing it, at like this is the pinnacle for them, and this is like it's either going to be a big announcement and it's going to just have big implications, or it's going to be fluff that they figured, you know what, we're going to announce this around this time anyway. Why not do it at Worlds? But like, there's a lot of stuff behind it. It could be something related to it said it was something related to the 25th anniversary, right? Like that was the whole thing.
yeah. So I mean, it has to be something. I mean, the only reason to like do it on a website like that
Yeah.
is because it is related. It's how do I word this? It is something larger media wise, which to me would mean new TV show, new movie. There's no reason they would announce that and have it be like, here's a brand new set or anything like that. It has to be something with more like broader implications of the Yu-Gi-Oh franchise as a whole. Um, so I definitely think it's either a new TV show or a new movie.
I'd be hopeful for new TV show because traditionally when there is a new TV show that isn't Rush Duels or any of that stuff,
Yes.
we sort of get a little bit more content wise. Not to say I think Yu-Gi-Oh has been fine even without a new TV show, but like obviously where do you go in terms of introducing new card types and stuff like that? It's like you can still do it, but having the TV show to tie it in is always good marketing for an IP. You sort of just get that little
Mhm.
extra and it makes the transition a little easier, and it could bring new people into the game, which I think is always good. So yeah, new TV show wouldn't be opposed to if it leads to new things. It could also be maybe more of like a not like a rehash, but let's say like maybe it's DM and it's just Duel Monsters Part 2, and they sort of
Oh
expand on that
wait.
story again.
Oh, I. Something that they've been doing recently is, what I think it could be, is that it's going to be a reboot of the original Yu-Gi-Oh TV show.
Oh, like a
Mm.
remake.
Yeah, like yeah,
Oh, that would
yes.
actually be insane.
And that way it would appeal to like old people who like really loved original Yu-Gi-Oh and also like new people also.
And then
So
like
you
you
know what?
don't censor it like 4 Kids did, maybe. Like maybe
Well,
you
no,
just
I think
do it
it
like
would
again.
either be a tie like it's gonna be like Dragon Ball Super levels, right? Where it's like it's still
Right.
got the original cast, but it's
It's
not,
it's
but it
yeah,
does. Like,
right. So it's either going to be like original Yu-Gi-Oh all new story TV show, or it's going to be like a complete reboot and they changed how the original story works or whatever, kind of like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood or something like that, right?
yeah,
So
Um
I really don't think they would do new stories because Kazuki Takahashi died. And I'm pretty sure it's like a big cultural thing to like
mm,
not do that, but maybe there have been other instances where they have done it anyway, but I really think the chances of like an original, like a sequel to the original series, I think is
mm.
far less likely without him writing it. But
um
I could
well then
definitely see
well,
like a
couldn't you say the
remake.
same of like a Bonds Beyond Time 2, which uses like the original Yu-Gi-Oh cast that he did as well? Like that would basically kind of saying like anything involving Yugi is off the table then.
No,
Like writing new stories.
no,
Well,
there are a lot of like
because
stories
because like
involving it
also
that
like
he
the
like
most recent
approved.
movie was all about Yugi and Kaiba and stuff like
Well, yeah, but
that. So you're saying
he wrote
so
that
yeah,
and
so
he
you're
was
saying they would never
alive.
make another so you're saying they would never make another movie that was
I
based off
don't
of Yugi,
think
Kaiba, and
they'd do like
Joey
a
and stuff?
full series. Maybe they would do a movie that's like more. Plus, there's to be honest, there's probably a chance that he like had something written, like some draft of something. Like they're still finding drafts that like Tolkien wrote, however
Yeah,
many, like however long
Sure. So
ago.
I
So
so I
that's
guess
probably the
theoretically, if it is a reboot
yeah,
of like the old TV show, it was something
hmm
that he was working on before he passed, because there's no
yeah.
way that this isn't something they haven't been working on for a
Oh
while,
yeah,
right?
yeah. It's definitely been like
yeah.
yeah. There's no way they started this a week ago. This has been like it wasn't a surprise. It was the 25th anniversary.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Like it's just yeah. I
Something else I
agree.
kind of want to like bring up in like kind of that goes like kind of hand in hand with this would be how like the last month or so there was the release of the shareholders information regarding Yu-Gi-Oh and how some of the shareholders were concerned about the way Yu-Gi-Oh is right now, and I think this would be a good way or an announcement to like put faith back into the Yu-Gi-Oh brand with this announcement, especially if it's something related to like the original Yu-Gi-Oh series, because a lot of times there's like between a lot of casual people and you hear it all the time. Like I can't believe how much on Twitter I hear, I wish Yu-Gi-Oh was just like the old days or whatever like that, right? And I think something regarding either new TV show that's a reboot or like a remake of the old TV show would help install some more like a goodwill with like shareholders as well, because
I
I think a
definitely
lot
think
of
a
people would.
remake.
I think a lot of people would be very excited for like to see all those characters
Oh,
because
for
it's the
sure.
original, right?
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think the best way to capitalize on something like that would be to support more classic formats or more alternative formats, which I see that being pretty unlikely, to be honest. But maybe, I mean, not even, and I'm saying like not even like Edison. I mean like earlier than that,
Sure,
like
sure.
maybe they could do.
It's difficult though. Okay, so
Oh,
the
I
way
know
to
it's very
look at it,
difficult. I know.
the way to look at it is right. Especially for OCG as well. It's like if you do make like the legacy format a thing, like uh really all you're doing is just like trying to be cyclical in terms of like set release and just like going back and it just okay, it doesn't seem like as silly or limiting like when you just look at okay as Edison like just pick up and play it, whatever. But in my mind when I see something like that, it doesn't fix like the core problem, right? Like you have nostalgic Yu-Gi-Oh, that's fine. You release like the LOB boxes, like that doesn't really cater to like a legacy format or anything. But like if you have it in rotations, like the people who have the nostalgia, the collector sort of like value like Pokemon does, then those sets are really, really good. So I think what if we look at it from like a Magic the Gathering perspective of we have a set for the player, a set for the collector, and then a set for the hyper casual. And then that sort of just like keeps everything intact. And then when you go for like multi format, you could have it where it's like, well, you know what, casual format, you could, buy this little draft box, play your locals, and it'll cost you $10. And like, you're only getting vanillas and stuff like that. And you're playing bare bones Yu Gi Oh! With
So
no
the thing
link,
is
something
that
like
they have those draft boxes and they don't do well.
Yeah, well, one of them did well, and then the next ones, it's like, so
no,
this
I'm
is
I'm I'm,
this is
sa-
what
I'm saying
happens
like
every time.
not speed duel necessarily. I'm saying like think lower price point. I'm thinking
How
like
much
we have
lower can you get? Some of these speed
But
duel
yeah.
I
draft
don't
boxes
know.
are like 20
I honestly
bucks.
I don't know. I
How much
really
lower
don't
can you
know.
get for a draft box?
I'm not thinking like a big draft box. I'm thinking like Jeff and I had this discussion about Keyforge. I'm thinking like a little like
Dude,
3-pack
oh
tough
my god.
box, which
I
is what
didn't
they call them
okay.
by the way.
I'm gonna say
Yeah, look at this
I'm not gonna I can't talk
Speed Duel
about
Academy
Keyforge.
GX box, unopened. You can buy it right now for $15. How much
Yeah, no,
cheaper
I'm
do
thinking
you need?
like special edition tier, but it's like there's no foils in the pack, and it is literally just there for like your local play, and your entry includes one of these, and maybe its MSRP is like $8 or something, right? And like you win, you get a promo and a T-shirt, and that's like your introductory sort of thing for like Yu-Gi-Oh. But like I know it doesn't sound good. I don't think old formats really do anything except for like give you that one little layer of like the nostalgia factor.
I
It's like I
feel like
don't see people put
this is an entire conversation for another day because it's
Yeah.
something that we could go on about for a very long time.
yeah.
One thing I will say is the next. So this happens every time, as I was about to say, is that the first Speed Duel box was announced. No one bought it. Like no vendors bought it. No stores bought it because they didn't think it was because Speed Duel doesn't sell. It was a huge hit. It literally reinvigorated people wanting to try out Speed Duel. But since nobody bought large quantities, it was very hard to get, and it became more expensive than MSRP fairly quickly. So then they announced Speed Duel GX box. We got Cyber Dragon. We got good DD Crow. Good. I mean, maybe DD Crow. Good cards.
Mm-hmm.
And then they literally set the metagame for Speed Duel again. And again, like sort of got people more interested in Speed Duel. But because everyone who missed out on Battle City, the Speed Duel box, ordered 1,000,000 cases of Speed Duel GX. And you only need one Speed Duel GX box to get every single card for every deck. So everybody bought too much. And now the product is worthless. And it's just, as Jeff said, you can buy them online for half of what the retail price was about. And then because everybody got burned on that, they came out with, like the mini Speed Duel GX box, then the next Speed Duel GX box, and then, you can all buy those for retail or under retail still. And now the next
Oh
Speed
no,
Duel
no, like
box is Battle City
I
again.
agree. I think Speedle has like another issue with it where it's like it's not old Yu-Gi-Oh. Like it is
Oh,
old
yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh, but it's not.
It's not.
It's
not
Duel
anymore.
Links. It is Duel
It's
Links.
Duel
I
Links,
don't- yeah,
yes.
it's
I
that's
agree.
it. And it's like
Yeah.
there anyone who plays Speed Duel is either like, I don't think new people are gonna enter and be like, yeah, this is a good entry point for me to play Yu-Gi-Oh. I'm gonna start playing Speed Duel. Like, no. You're gonna spend a bunch of money on a bunch of cards you'll never play in like actual modern Yu-Gi-Oh after the fact. And it's not like there's gonna be any events for you to play while playing Speed Duel. So it just seems mute, right? At that point, why not just like give the casuals what they want, cheap, like I'm talking like, let's look at the LOB boxes are fine, but then you have to look at like MRD, IOC, MRL, all of those ones. Those are literally going to sit on the shelves. Do something with that. Who cares? You know what'd be fun? Opening a bunch of MRL packs and then just playing sealed with a bunch of broken cards like Confiscation and Delinquent Duo. That sounds hilarious. I would love that.
I mean, so I don't know.
The
I mean,
problem is you will not pull any of those cards because all of those cards
No,
because these sets
exactly.
are
But
unplayable. That's the
Yes,
problem.
No.
so
But
then
I'm saying,
I'm gonna so again, like the designer in me thinks that like you tried to appeal with these sets too much to people of like their reminiscence or like of the olden days, and I think you could have still appealed to those people and still made people who don't care about these old sets by just putting 25th rares in the reprint sets.
Oh yeah, I actually cannot believe that that didn't happen. I actually
Instead,
cannot believe that did not happen. Like
Yeah,
it is baffling that all alters and secrets were not
it's
also quarter century rares.
it's pretty upsetting to think about as well, because all that happens now is you're gonna have these boxes of like MRL and everything else, and you know those products where it's like it's on the shelf for like 8 months and stores are like, damn, why is no one buying this? Like my distro said this would be broken, and it's like, yeah, because you ordered equal amounts of LOB, MRL, and everything else, and obviously LOB sold out in a heartbeat because it's the most iconic set in Yu-Gi-Oh. And now you just have all of these other like semi-dud sets, which I think would be a reasonable investment. Like if you have to sell them at cost, it's like people will probably end up buying them, but like, is that good for you as a store? No, definitely not. So if you put the 25ths in there, people will just crack it for the sake of cracking it. It's just another expensive card that they can slab and get
Right.
a PSA 8 on and be upset.
Randomly, the Blue Eyes, even like the new one from like the 25th anniversary reprint set is like worth something. It's like almost $50.
Like no, all of those cards are actually like, I think like the lowest 25th anniversary like from the Legendary Collection box thing is
But you mean
worth
like
more.
the quarter century secret rare promos? Is that what you're
No,
talking
Yeah,
about?
no,
I think the
oh.
cheapest one is worth more than
So
any
that's why
card.
that's why I was saying like Ryan's talking about something different than Bohdan's. I thought Ryan was talking about the quarter century promos because that Blue Eyes is worth like $16.
No, I'm talking about
You're talking about
the
the
one from the
actual
pack.
LOB reprint
Yeah.
Blue Eyes.
Oh, you're talking about like the ball. Oh,
Like
sorry.
the unlim
No, I was
Blue
gonna say like,
Eyes.
oh, I feel like those quarter century like promos from the little box set, if those were just like also include, you know what I mean, or like maybe not included like the same way, but if instead like they were just in the core set, that would have been fine. That would have just been the correct way to do it,
Yes,
because it
like
seems like they were previewing it to lead you to believe like, oh well, what you know what a crazy thing would be as well. I think people love having like sealed product and stuff like that. What if you just had a box topper
I was
Yu-Gi-Oh's the only game that like of the big games
that
that
doesn't
don't
have
do box
box
toppers.
toppers or case toppers or anything. Yeah, even just a case
That's
topper, which they used to do, but they don't anymore. Do you remember they used to do playmats as case
the
toppers?
little mini like giant cards and
or
stuff.
the oversized cards, yeah. For Cosmo Blazer and Legacy of the Valiant, they had 2-player rubber mats that I believe were case toppers. And then for Dimension of Chaos and probably some other sets that I'm blanking. Oh, and I actually have the Generation Force ones. I have a oversized Tyrus, the rank 5. And
I remember that one.
Yeah, and then the Dimension of Chaos had Scarlight and Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. And I used the oversized Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon as my translation, and I played a foreign copy of that card when I played Pendulum. And one guy
tried to shark me on a translation when I was doing the regional grind, and I felt like my eyes glowed and I levitated into the air as I handed him the oversized one and made him read it aloud.
Oh my goodness. All right,
God.
but on that note too. So like yes, a box topper for one of those 25th anniversary things. You pick the iconic card. It doesn't necessarily have to be the cover card. It could be a card that's cool in legacy formats as well. You could have alternating ones. Anything to incentivize opening this product. Whether
Yeah.
you're a store, something. You know why? Because when the product doesn't get open, well, where do those box toppers go? Nowhere.
And
But
I
when
just
they
want to
go on
point out,
TCG Player, they go up
in,
in price.
in case anyone wants to talk about cost, when I made a game and we put box hoppers in our game, I know for a fact that the price does not increase exponentially. So I know it costs very little to like put box hoppers in, and even less for Konami, who orders product to get made at an exponentially higher rate than
Well,
I was.
these sets, my understanding is these sets were also made to order, like based on projection. So it was like once these are made, like this is done.
Which is
But like,
because
could
I
they
feel
make them
like
again?
this is one that you do a second run of.
I
Surely.
mean, it could be if demand is there. I think LOB might actually get a second.
That's what
run,
I'm saying is
honestly.
I feel like LOB should get a second run.
Dude, I sat there looking at LOB and I'm like, I think this might be too high. Surely these don't sell out. And boy, was I wrong. LOB is just going like hot.
I know
and
LOB.
I don't know
I
why.
know. I know. LOB is
It's
even
insane.
Metal Raiders isn't
But
that
if you
bad. But the
looking
other
looking
ones
at
are
every
just
other set,
nothing.
man. Oh, it's so
Yeah.
disappointing.
IOC. I was shocked that IOC is. I thought for sure IOC would be worth more than Spell Ruler and Pharaoh Servant, but no, IOC is just dirt, like literal.
Yeah.
Ugh. I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't give you that aura outside of having, because that's the thing, it'll take so long for these cards to gain any value, right? And like it might be shorter, it might be another COVID period where you see like a slight boom. Maybe these are actually more scarce than we could have anticipated. Who knows? You know, like
Yeah.
only Konami knows, right? But then for like a product like this, I think its appreciation rate is probably not that good. And then like opening it makes absolutely zero sense at all. Like
Mhm.
I cannot fathom opening this for the nostalgia factor for the price that I'm paying.
So the thing is that, but the people who do have this nostalgia factor is they only have a reason to really open like one box, and then they have their
Yeah, yeah.
nostalgia fulfilled. Other than that, there's no reason to keep opening, right? Like they're
Yeah.
not trying to pull something. There's no reason
Well,
to.
like I see some people try and do like complete sets and stuff like that, but like it's still gonna be the complete sets of LOB. Like it's never a
Well,
complete. Like I
the
really want a
complete
complete set of
sets you
MRL.
you
Right?
can just buy on TCG Player for less than you would the amount of product
Yeah.
you're opening.
No, exactly. Because I think just you need to incentivize a product like this a little bit more with something mildly unique. Maybe it doesn't have to detract from like its original intention, but I think that would only reign true if you didn't print everything it with the new setup. Does that make sense? Like you can't claim, oh, we wanted to stick as close to the original as we could within reason, but then it's like new rarity, new rarity scheme. Like the foil, like stars and stuff like that. Like different sort of layout. Like it's the old card, like it's a new card stock. It says, Shueisha TV Tokyo, stuff like that. And like obviously, there's other factors for
the
that.
boxes, obviously 25th anniversary
Yeah.
edition, and like and stuff like that. So I mean,
It's like, is this LOB unlim? No,
no,
and
it's
like
not.
it's
No,
it's easy to differentiate the fact, and I don't think you had to make the core set one for one as to what it was. Do you know?
Yeah.
Do you know what would have been? Do you know what would have been crazy? Do you know what I think would have been the best throwback ever? If they had for MRD and for LOB, they had those misprints. Do you remember those ones? Like the Gaia Dragon with like the ultra rare name and stuff like that. And there's like the ones where the names are swapped. Like those are like pretty iconic misprints. Like those are the ones that like I see floating around like quite often. But I think the Gaia Dragon's the one that people people like know a lot more. Where it's like Gaia Dragon, I think from like the first print, it might it's not, definitely not just first edition, but there's an ultra rare named Gaia Dragon and a secret rare named Gaia
No,
Dragon.
it's a secret
Just
rare
the-
name, and but the foiling doesn't have the
Oh,
secret rare
sorry.
lines.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That one. But
Yeah.
yeah, like that would just be like.
Which the fact that I
something
know
cool.
what you're talking about also just kind of proves like your point, I think, of like
yeah, like
it
why,
is like
why
a
wouldn't
yeah.
you do something like that to like a little tidbit? It's like a nice little touch on a nostalgic product. You have like the things that made it unique at the time, like pulling something cool like that, pulling a cool misprint. That could be your chase card. You
I
know
don't
what
think
mean? Like,
that's
you could.
real though necessarily.
I
Like, I don't think they're gonna do purposeful
I
misprints.
agree, but I think like in the same vein, it's like, well, you could argue it's like, well, LOB was like generic. It's like, no, LOB still had like unique stuff. I feel like that just wasn't even a misprint. I feel like that was just like an Easter egg or something. I saw so many of those, dude. I don't even. It's just so weird to think
I
about that they just
honestly just think if they just put
that.
quarter century secret rares, it was fine.
Yeah.
I mean that
Like
would've been
that is
great.
literally the only thing. that's it. I think it would have been fine.
Hear me out. What if even at the simplest level, what if for sets like this, what if you had a god pack? You know what I mean? Like one per case, you have a god pack. That would be cool. Just like little stupid things that I see other games do. But if you do it for a nostalgic set like this, I feel like that would be sick. You open a god pack of like LOB and you pull like, I guess it would just be supers and some ultras, but imagine you pull like a Blue Eyes and a Dark Magician in the same pack from LOB. Like that's just a little thing that goes with it. Probably won't sell the thing more, but like, do you really have to put any extra effort to do it? Probably not. It's something people would talk about as well. It's like, wow, I put a god pack. Oh, it's a god pack, awesome. Just silly shit like that I think adds to the appeal of opening a booster pack, especially a booster pack of cards that aren't playable in current Yu-Gi-Oh. And the only factor for you to open them would just be to like, I'm gonna get them to grade them. It's like, congratulations, you are now grading a card that is probably worth less than it costs you to grade it. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm glad the product exists. Don't get me wrong, but it's lacking. It's really just missing something. And I feel like there's so many little things that could have been done to make it just marginally better before you even look at stuff like quarter century res. I think that's the obvious one.
I feel like that's the theme of this podcast is things can always be. I feel like I want to say things can be so much better by doing so little.
I think they're doing a good job though. They're doing like a good job for the little things. But it's hard to notice sometimes, and like you really like, I think Ryan's a person who appreciates the very like small things, which I think is like funny. It's
I
like,
have an example
I think
right
a lot
now
of the cool well,
of
like a lot of
just-
the cool little stuff tends to come from like the judge program more than anything, right? And I feel like you appreciate those, and those are like pretty independent of everything else, but I think those are
Well,
like funny enough.
So that's something. I mean, all of the games, again, if you look at all of the big games for their judge programs, you know what they give judges? They
Yeah,
give
they give
them
them
judge
the
promos. They
Yeah,
give
I
them
know.
promo cards that people will buy. And the fact that Yuga's like, here's this field center. It's like,
It is
it
kind
would-
of bizarre. They revealed like 7 field centers this week when it's like I can only use one. Like I'm not playing that many games at a time.
like playmats are one thing. I think the field centers get a little excessive. They should just be giving. Again, it costs them so little.
I
to
like
do
the field
something
centers
like
though.
that.
They all look pretty nice.
I think the field centers look really
I
cool.
like I like the Diviner of the Herald one a lot.
So the thing is that none of us, Ryan. Let's be realistic.
I don't
none
use
of
field
us use
centers.
field centers.
I have a
none of
mat
us
with
do.
zones.
No
Oh,
one.
I use the field center.
Wait,
I
the only
haven't-
time any of us use field center is as a token on our field.
I have zones on my mat.
No,
I don't need a field
I
center.
use the first OCG field center, and it's my favorite thing ever.
Yeah.
My
okay.
mat has zones on it.
Yeah, my mat has
Mine
zones
also
on it.
has zones. I still use my field center.
Incredible.
Yep.
But when it comes to a lot of times when judges get this stuff, it's given to them as a way to supplement income that they would
Yeah.
normally be making. And the vast majority of people, like, it's way harder to get rid of field centers and playmats than it is to get rid of cards. And so if they just gave them judge promos with like special cool stuff stamped on it or whatever, or even if they just made they would never do this, like a judge rarity or whatever.
Mhm.
That would be able to like give the judges way more to be
Well,
able to
okay,
like
like
offset
to not make
costs.
this run another like 2.5 hours, which is what we're getting
Yeah.
towards. Ryan will have to do some heavy editing and make sure none of us has said anything incriminating. But
We have
yeah,
not. I've been keeping track.
so I think let's break it down like this. How about we each say one small but realistic thing you would like to see in the next year from the game, whether it be judge compensation in the form of something unique, maybe participation pricing in the form of something unique, maybe something adjusting for like a core set or something. And we'll start with like Ryan. We'll put you on the
But
spot.
before we do that, I just want to say something about judges, simply because I think it matters a lot, because we
Mm.
all have friends who are judges, and it's that when we have these like we had a 3,000 person event with 100
Mm.
judge staff, less than 100 at the end of the day. Judges have to do so much and manage so many people that it's freaking crazy. Ryan judged one YCS, and at the end, he's like, "I never want to do this again."
Oh yeah.
And
It
so
was it broke me. I will be
I
honest.
I think that so when I say like, oh, judges should get more, it's that's the reason why they have to do so much, and I think it's overlooked by a lot of the people, and a lot of judges are taken for granted. Um,
Oh no, for sure. I think they do whatever they can within their means, with like approval and everything. I think like a lot
yeah,
of the stuff
I
that the judges
that would
get is probably reasonable, but not reasonable when you look at it from the outside perspective. I know there's a lot of like hoops that have to be jumped through to even get something remotely approved.
all,
So especially judge stuff is
always, yeah. Japan might look at it and say, "We you want to make promo cards for judges only?" No, there's no way we're allowing you to
well,
do
you
that.
also have to like OCG territories will have like their big event, but it's like they have like the database is more comprehensive rulings, and it's like their judge stuff is probably way smaller. Like the judge calls a relative. Their idea of a big event is the best of one YCS, right? And that's cut. They're doing that so they don't have to have a larger staff.
Mhm.
Nothing matters. And then when you get to like their other big events as well, it's like, well, do you have the appropriate amount of staff compared to maybe like a US event? The answer is generally no. But again, like the structure is made to compensate for that. It's a little bit less competitive. So I think they overlook it. They just look at it like, judge expendable. It's fine. Someone else will do it if they don't like it.
Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
we'll go back to your what
Yeah.
you
So
wanted
what
to
what do you
do.
what do you what do you want to see? What do you want to see in the like let's say like in the next like calendar year or something, like where are we at? Like what do you want to see changed? Well, not chain
Not
necessarily. Like
what's
let's say like
one
what do you want to see
thing
introduced that's like even so
or
so
you hope
minor
that
to think about.
happens,
Yeah.
Ryan?
Oh, can I not go first? Sorry.
All right, Jeff. How about you?
Sh- Sure. I mean, it's something that I've said many times on this podcast, and I hope that there is a new card type that comes out
Mm.
to shake things up in the way the game is played. I mentioned this at my locals yesterday, and they're like, "Well, we just brought the illusion type," and I'm like, "Shut up! That
Doesn't count.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, that's not a thing." But yeah, my biggest problem with my kind of like falling in and out of love with Yu-Gi-Oh is it just feels like kind of the same shit, different day, and it's not as exciting as it was when the entire the way the game you had to play the game changed, and it introduced a lot of new stuff instead of just kind of like these repeating kind of archetypes with here's this next field spell, here's their Rhoda, here's their boss monster, extra deck boss monster, and I just really would like to see a change with some
Mm.
sort of new card type. So how about you, what would you like to see?
Um, mm, I think at like the bare bones of it, maybe just an adjustment to how maybe just general gameplay. What if we move the minimum deck count to 50? What if just something like that would be an interesting shakeup where it's like
you know how everyone's just trying to go for like, we're at 40 cards, this is like the most consistent, blah blah blah. And it's like, obviously there'll be other factors when you do changes like that. Some cards might get better, some cards will get significantly worse. But at the end of the day, it's like, how are we going to offset like the discrepancy of like, if someone goes second, they have to do X, Y, and Z to compensate for that. But then when they go first, X, Y, and Z don't work. Like, how are we fixing this? And I think there's like maybe I don't know, but like the person going second draws 6 cards. You know what
I
I
was
mean?
about to
Like
say, we
I
talked
had the
about that
idea for like the
before.
scry mechanic with like, you see your 6th card and you decide if you want to put it on the top or the bottom, but like it doesn't interact in your hand. Like you add, it's like a pseudo mulligan where like you will draw your opening hand of 5, and then if you're the player going second, you draw your 6th card. You get to now put a card on the top or the bottom, or maybe it just all perma goes to the bottom. Who knows, right?
So I think like I think something like that is like, I don't want to use the word correct, but like a good
Mm,
way to go about it. Where like I think it's just the person who goes second draws 6 cards but doesn't draw for
mm.
turn.
Yeah, no, you know, obviously, yeah, I wouldn't let the person going second have 7 cards. I think that one's just like too
Right.
outlandish.
Yeah. So
But
it just
but more
neither
of like,
player goes
you
first. Neither
yeah.
player draws a card on their turn 1, but
Mm.
the second player draws 6 cards.
Yeah. Like that seems reasonable. Like that's another way to call like, you know, oh, in my opening 5 I need to see X amount of hand traps, or you know, like I would like to see my extra card, because you know, more cards is obviously better when someone's trying to establish a board. Like that's a no-brainer. And if it's the 6th card that you're going to draw for turn, there's no net positive for going second at that point. Like,
Hmm.
why, you know, like, what are you achieving? And I think that's the other
Especially
thing with like
when he feels
the
bad, we're like,
fake
oh,
mulligan thing.
6. Well, also when he's like, oh, 6 card Nibiru, 6 card
Yeah,
Ash.
no,
Like,
exactly. Well, that's where I wanted like the fake mulligan, or like the fake fixer when you're going second, to sort of come in as well, where it's like, well, if we don't want to give them the 6th card instantly, how about we let them see the 6th card and still put them back to 5? Because it's like, you're not building a combo either way, right? Like, it
sure,
doesn't
like
matter.
draw 6 cards and put 1 card from your hand on the bottom of the deck or something.
Yeah, or like even to the top, like that would be the same thing. Right? Like that would actually just be the same thing, except now you have the option to like see 6 cards and then make it a bunch of, you know, you can make it like, I want the hand trap, like, sure. And like, could that be oppressive? Could that be, you know, bad for the game? I think there's an argument where it could be, you know, more of an issue. But for like current Yu-Gi-Oh, I think it would probably solve a lot of the problems that we have, especially when
I,
combo decks exist.
so I think a problem that could be, so I think that would be amazing for TCG, but really
Mm.
bad for OCG where they have back
Because
C.
the maxi, yeah, that
Yeah.
would be a big problem.
But yeah. So
Well,
all right,
what
Ryan,
if
we're
that
down to
problem
you.
could be solved
Go on. We
by
ban Maxi.
banning
Yes, that was
Maxi?
simple.
Yeah, okay. So mine's not a gameplay thing. I think the gameplay issues for Yu-Gi-Oh more or less like work themselves out, generally speaking. Like, there have been good formats and there have been bad formats forever. Like, I truly do not think old Yu-Gi-Oh has been better or new Yu-Gi-Oh is better. Like, I can show you a format from 2008 that is unplayably terrible, and I can show you a format from 2018 that's terrible, right? Like, just, you know, sometimes they miss the mark on card design relative to the format, and like, it's not fun, and then they fix it, and then it's fun for a little while. And like, you know, I would say I've had formats where I've really enjoyed Yu-Gi-Oh and formats where I haven't in the past, you know, even like a year. And it's like, that'll just happen. Like, I don't want any like sweeping changes. I just think, and this is something that Jeff keeps saying, you know, you're like comparing it to like other games. I think the tournament experience could just feel better at all levels. And this is an idea I've been thinking about for a while that I probably mentioned in the past, where I would have liked to see a tournament pack for high level events. You know,
Yeah.
so you have the OTS tournament pack, which you get for entering locals and whatever.
So it'd be YCS pack basically.
Maybe even regionals too. And
Mhm.
my first idea, the first idea I had of it, and I first mentioned this probably 5 years ago, was you top a YCS and they give you however many YCS packs. And the more I think about it, I don't think that actually solves the problem. What I actually think I would like to see is that I think that when you top a YCS, having a special tournament pack would be nice. But I also think the entry of 5 packs of the newest core booster set should be replaced with a unique pack. I think if they made a YCS pack similar to an OTS pack that rotated every core set and coincided with the core set rotating, it could even be the same configuration of an OTS, except you don't need commons, obviously. You don't need commons from the YCS pack. That's irrelevant. It can just be a 1 card per pack blind pack, and you could even have them all be the same rarity. You can just make them all super rare, like who cares, or all ultra, or all secret, or all ultimate, or whatever. Or you could do the same. You could do ultimates and supers.
Some sort of like unique differentiating
Sure.
thing, because then you come into the problem of, oh, here's this reprint set that has the same foils that have already been done before.
Yeah. Like, yes, there could be something that they could be stamped. You know how we have the quarter century ones have the little stamp on the bottom that say quarter century? Even the Adidas shoe promo had a stamp that says Adidas on it. If they just had a stamp that said YCS on it, just put the YCS logo, just put a stamp. And instead of getting 5 packs of a core booster set for entering, which you will usually pull nothing and you're sick and you just, you got nothing, you can just get 5 packs of this tournament pack, of this YCS tournament pack. And then for topping, you get more of them in addition to the prizing that they have. Instead of a booster box of the core set for getting top 16, which is a laughable prize for just for the record. Like, my locals literally gave you more packs than that on Saturday, like for top 8.
Yeah.
like it is a crazy thing. And I think this is something that, and then this can tie into what Jeff was saying. You give the judges a pack from the same card pool, but instead of a YCS stamp, it has the judge program stamp, and you get judge promos.
Mm-hmm.
And now you design one product that has a life cycle identical to a core set. And
so the only thing I think is I think this is great. We talked about it before. We're just going more in depth.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has to be longer than a set, simply because a lot of regions don't even have an event where there's
that is true. Sure, that's fair.
Set,
that's
right?
fair.
So
but I don't think it can be a full year. Maybe it's like half,
really?
like half and half. I think if they do it for a full year, the cards are out of date by they're just.
I think it would have to I think it would have to coincide with the YCS prize card, and every time a YCS prize card changes, they change the pack.
I think you'd have to make the cards very generic. Then you couldn't really make them archetypal. I would say you gotta make them generic, which is fine. Yeah, that could happen. And then by the end of the format, obviously they're less desirable, but so are the prize cards. Like the last YCS of the format, the prize card is worth half of what it was the first event.
I would also like to make the note of some of these other games, most notably the Bandai games.
Mm-hmm.
They have a winners promo pack, and then they have like a participation promo pack.
Yes.
And you could just do the same thing. It's very simple.
Yes.
Like to keep note of this, the amount of promo packs I've seen from Bandai is ridiculous. And then it's also just like they just have 1 card in them. Look at the waste.
Japan already does this, by the way. Japan has their tournament packs. It's all commons, and then all the cards can also be a parallel rare. Like literally, it looks like a Hobby League card.
Yes.
And then for entering, you get a silver pack, which has commons and has a chance of having a parallel rare. If you win the locals, you get a gold pack that is guaranteed to have a parallel rare.
Yeah,
they can literally just do that. Except if you win, you get a pack that's guaranteed to have an ultimate rare. And like,
I also would like to make the note as well. I think the one thing Japan does, which is absolutely awesome compared to what we're where we're at, right?
Mhm.
I think Lost Arts are played out. They're done. It's over.
Yeah,
I want something more practical. I want what Japan does, where you spend X amount on product. Do you know what you get? You get 10 blind bag sleeves, and now the more product you buy, the more chance you have of getting 50 sleeves or more to create your deck with those sleeves, and they're exclusive. You know exactly what I mean, right?
Yeah,
You know
the
exactly
econ
which product
ones.
I mean.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. You get their exclusive sleeves for buying product, and you only get 10 of them, and they're
Mhm.
worth money, especially the cooler ones.
Yeah, because to get more than 10, you have to buy more products. To get a playset of Lost Stars, you have to spend I don't know, buy 2 booster boxes or some shit. I don't know. Maybe less. I don't even know what the the basic cost price is, but it's all of these Lost Stars, they just get funneled in and in and in. And I feel like sleeves are just more practical. You know? It just makes sense.
So one thing I want to talk about before we wrap up the conversation of YCS West packs is one of the things when I thought about this before is when talking about we change the packs every year, every time they change a prize card,
Mhm.
is I think something that they could do is they put the previous year's prize card inside the pack as a special rarity. So you could have a Starlight version of the dragon, whatever this another verse dragon, and instead of printing it in a random
In a
pack or
core set,
whatever,
yeah.
and of course that now it still has a cool value, it's a cool rarity. You have, or it would be 25th rare or whatever,
Yeah.
and that would be the chased card in it, right? Instead of having ultimate rares or whatever like that. It gives you a way of celebrating the last year's prize card, but also the new one is out. And I think it would be very easy to do. So
Yeah, that's a really, I like that idea a lot of that can be I think it's more relevant when you're dealing with potentially playable prize cards where it's there was always this kind of ambiguity of when is this going to be printed so other people can get
right.
their hands on it, and it's if it's just it'll be printed, maybe even not necessarily as a chase rarity, it'll be the it'll be in the participation pack of the next year's events guaranteed, would I feel ease a lot of people's minds of just oh, this prize card is so broken and we don't know when we're gonna get it. It's
Right.
you do know when you're gonna get it. You'll get it eventually, right? For sure. That's
Well
interesting.
now,
I like that
now
idea.
it's just now it's just now they're just normal monsters. They're just collector's cards. So now
Yeah.
it's you don't have to worry about getting it because you don't need to
Mhm.
worry about playing it. So now
Yeah.
there's just this.
Yeah. That's
But
true.
then when you go to a YCS, you open a pack and you see this super shiny dragon card that was a prize card. You're like, oh, holy shit! And you get excited about it, and it's still a collector's card, and it doesn't really devalue from the original because it's still a hard to get card of a different rarity. It's not a YCS prize card.
Yeah. I definitely think the dice and the coins are for sure a step in the right direction, and I really appreciate those existing. But
So
I
it's
just
just
don't
so weird
think it
because
is
other games
enough.
all do promo cards,
I
which
know.
makes me think that either one, they're just trying to be contrarian, right? And they're like, oh, we're
Yeah.
gonna do something different, or Japan just won't let them do that
Yeah. Well,
because
Japan
it's
has
so
their own
simple,
promo cards for their own YCSs.
right? Exactly. So they're gonna. So in my head, I can
Yeah.
hear Japan saying, "No, our players get this, you don't."
Yeah, I don't know. Could be.
But it would be so simple to just be like, all right, this YCS season has these promo cards you get for entering.
Yeah.
I mean, I just have so many dice, and the dice were cool for a week, and then the coins are cool for a week, but they aren't where's the word I want? They're not practical, right? There's no use for them. They just kind of sit on
Yeah.
your desk. Uh, so cards are much more practical and they hold value way more. They're giving people more an incentive to show up, which of course they don't care about because they get the numbers anyway.
Yeah.
But which could be another thing. We're like, oh, people show up. Why do more?
Oh, I mean, for sure they're not changing anything because they don't have
I
to.
have
They
I
absolutely do
have
not have
another
to.
one There's another one that I would like to steal. So here's the cool thing, right? If you look at other games, larger tournaments, right?
Mhm.
Their entry fee has gone up, but their pricing related to the entry fee going up has not necessarily scaled appropriately. Someone did the math. I think it might have been for Pokemon, it might have been for Magic. I don't remember. But
It's
Magic had
probably
is charging
Pokemon.
some. Yeah, it's like, well, Magic was charging some like ridiculous, like $100 for
Magic
like
had
a
some
massive vest or something.
crazy tournament prices. Like, and I was
Yeah.
like, I guess.
Well, they know that all
Yeah.
their people are just like 40-year-old people with jobs, right?
Yeah.
Like,
And
Well,
like hyper
they
competitive,
also
yeah.
they make it more of like a convention. I guess they have like artist signings and stuff like that.
mm,
So I think like that's the one thing we can really take away is like, yeah, the entry cost for YCS has maintained itself. The pricing has it gotten better? I
No,
mean,
they cost more now,
it's been
slightly.
the
Not
same.
that much, but a little bit
Yeah.
more.
It's about the same.
Yeah.
But what if on like we go back to like I think it was Magic that used to do it. They would have like a scaling tier for pricing. No, not pricing. Sorry, for entry, and you had like a basic entry fee, which got you no participation. You know who did this? Jim. Jim did this for ARGs.
yep.
Makes you really think. So you have one where you get your entry packs and you get your coin. You have one where you get none of those things and you're just entering the tournament. You have another one where you get your your entry packs, your coin, and then another special event unique item.
Like
And
premium
obviously,
tier.
yeah. And you could also, because Lord forbid they don't put more people in the VIP area, you pay extra for the preferential seating.
Oh, just for the seating, not for like a buy.
Nah, you don't pay for the buy. That would be silly.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I was
some
like,
of these,
okay, yes, okay. I was like, holy shit, you want to give
yeah.
everyone a tournament a buy?
Dude,
Okay.
that
well,
one would be wild.
yeah, that would be wild, wouldn't it? That would be
But
crazy
so
if someone did
like, but
that.
like when they do something like that, and it's like, yeah, like you get a unique, because that's all it was in Magic. It was like, I think it was like you like pay like 50 or something. This is like 7 or 8
Honestly,
years ago.
I guarantee that's crazy. If they did a you pay for VIP seating, I guarantee they would make so much money.
Well, they would have to give you like a playmat as well to not make it look ridiculous. But yeah,
No,
sure.
no, I don't care. Do you know how much if I didn't have VIP for
Yeah,
like
I know.
anyway, I would pay an extra $20 to never have to look for my seat again and only go to one spot.
That's fair.
Until two VIPs play each other.
And then
Then
one of us
what?
has to switch.
Yeah.
one of us
But
has to
then
switch
Konami's just made. If you really think about it, and it's like, yeah, but what if half the tournament is just paying for this VIP seating? It's like, yeah,
then
well,
they get
Konami's
their
done
And
it.
money.
no
Though.
one is. Yeah.
Konami's a genius. It's
But
solved.
they could also just say like, oh, like the first 100 people to register
Yeah.
can do whatever. They could just limit it to like 100 people or whatever. Like
No,
that.
no, definitely. But like, so at that point, that's also where like the event exclusive item will come in, where it's
Right.
like, we don't have to order the crazy MOQ of like 10,000 playmats or something, or just just something ridiculous. It's like, no, it's exclusive to like the first 200 people, and like it would just sell out very quickly. But it could be something as simple as like a playmat that already exists with the unique branding related to the city that the event is held in. Just something very, very minimalist that doesn't really affect the value of something or like create scarcity for an item that's like unique, right? You're still just like giving someone something unique, but it's not different enough where it's gonna cause uproar. It's like, wow, you only gave out 200 and I missed out. That's bullshit. It's like, no, it's the same playmat that most other people would get. It just says the city on it. Like, what do you want me to tell you? And that could be good enough. That could actually just be crazy. They could also just have an event exclusive playmat that is participation. So like they do participation playmats, but now imagine like they have one that you pay extra for. Well, solved, right? And it would have a static value at that point. You know why? Because you are just paying the very casual, $50 to get your VIP and this exclusive VIP playmat, right? To go along with it. It's simple, keeps the cost low, justifies their decision to do it, and they can do it at every event and no one will be upset. And then when they have milestone events and want to give a participation playmat out, they can still do that. It doesn't matter. Think about it.
We are thinking about it. Okay, this has been like 3 hours or something like that. we really have to wrap this up.
This
Mm.
we really went off the deep end.
Mhm.
But that's why we're here. Yeah, okay. So, that was a lot. Will I go through this and put timestamps in the description?
If you
Probably
want.
not.
Who knows?
So, yeah. This was fun. I think we had a lot of ideas, a lot of cool things. And yeah, so Bohdan is off to Worlds, and
Mm.
Jeff and I
me,
are
Ryan and I
off
are
to
off
Gen
to Gen Con.
Con. So when we're all recovered from our journeys, I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about.
Well, I
New
don't get back
stuff.
from Japan until the 15th, so we'll see you guys in another month.
Yeah.
Oh,
Very good.
no,
All
I'm
right.
just messing. I'll do the podcast in Japan because I'll hate myself.
Okay. So, thank you all for watching. This was a very long one. And hopefully, we'll see you next time.
Yes, with me as a world
Bye.
champ.